What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 17 LF. Chapter 266. The three brothers are looking forward to trouble coming to you. This is the character of the three Edward brothers. For the three Edward brothers, these are just trivial things, they don't need to be taken too seriously, after all. It's just mere troubles, if I can't deal with mere troubles. Forget it. Small problem. Small problem. In the eyes of the three brothers, hair is really nothing, it is definitely a small problem, and it does not need to be taken seriously. And because of this, next. All of this is the most troublesome thing, and more importantly, what will be the next thing? This is the most important thing. Woo. Breathing out a puff of smoke, Alan said casually, however. I'm quite curious, who are these guys going to shoot? Shiki, Akoku, John, Silver Axe. These four guys, if nothing else happens, this time, it's time to take action. After all, these four guys formed the alliance to deal with us. 9. Alan is really very calm, and it seems that he doesn't pay attention to all of this, but this is the real fact. Alan's strength is really here, and he naturally doesn't care about all of this. And if so, what will happen next? Indeed, this is something that no one knows, and it is something that no one knows, but no matter what the situation is, in fact. This is all insignificant, because it is not a big deal at all, no matter who shoots him. According to Alan's character, it's essentially a random question. Do you expect this guy to care about all this? Stop making trouble. This is pure nonsense. As long as it's not an idiot, it's very clear that this guy is a real lunatic. Edward Allen. This terrifying monster, do you expect him to be able to do 970s, or anything else? It's just like nonsense. This lunatic starts with endless cruelty, so say it. Don't expect to be able to make this. It is impossible for a ruthless monster to have any problems. This ruthless monster is so terrifying at any time. Alan also doesn't care about all of these things, no matter who the opponent is. Same. If you have so-called super strength, and the result is too much disappointment for Laozi, then this is the most boring thing for Alan, but it really disappoints Laozi too much. This is Alan. The most annoying thing about this terrifying monster is that it obviously doesn't have enough strength, and as a result, he actually came to ask for trouble. Just kidding. Alan is very satisfied with the provocation of those little devils. After all, it's not a bad thing, it's just a group of little devils. As these little devils grow up, it's not a big problem, but the same. If some of your trash comes to make trouble, then I won't be merciful. It is undeniable. This is Alan's character, there is no doubt about it. Alan has been such a character from beginning to end, and he has never paid attention to all of this. After all, with the growth of time, Alan's age is also growing, although he still maintains the madness and arrogance of his youth. But this does not mean that Alan is completely broken or boring. This is absolutely impossible. Alan can't be such a person. Alan has also transformed and grown, after all. With the growth of age, isn't it a matter of course for a person to grow? Naturally, Alan has also grown, and it has grown very greatly. He has grown in overall strength and in all aspects. Now Alan has the same identity as a qualified leader. For all this, Alan is very clear, and doesn't care at all, that's why. It's all that matters, too. These are the most fundamental and absolutely essential cores. Woo. Breathing out a puff of smoke, Alan said very casually. It looks like this is how things are. It's really boring, but it's not a big deal. After all, even if someone joins forces, it's probably a bunch of garbage. That's all. Do we still need to be afraid of some garbage? There was endless disdain in his eyes. Alan simply didn't take these garbage in his eyes. Just kidding. He still needs to be afraid of these garbage. Stop making trouble. This is absolutely impossible. His own strength is here, and I am not afraid of any of these at all. This is Alan's absolute confidence, this arrogance and arrogance. No one can imitate it. This is Alan's arrogance and arrogance. This is the monster called the devil. Edward Allen. The strength of this monster is so terrifying, and it is full of such hearts and thoughts. This is everything that is displayed in front of everyone's eyes, and Alan's horror is absolutely nothing to doubt. You need to doubt the horror of this monster. Do not. It's just unnecessary things. This monster doesn't care about it at all. He just shows mercy without any hesitation, let alone any hesitation. In Alan's eyes, after all, it's just a bunch of garbage, isn't it? Do you need to be too nervous to deal with all this junk? Stop it. No matter who the opponent is, even if it is a country with a rich heritage like Atom Kingdom, although Alan feels it, but there is no so-called shock. The reason is very simple. After all, Alan is not an idiot. Although it is said to be arrogant, but it is definitely not such arrogance. This is the behavior of an idiot, and Alan is not an idiot at all, let alone a fool. This is absolutely beyond doubt. What is the reason? Actually very simple. Alan is very clear about what is going to happen next, and what is going to happen next. This is one thing Alan is very clear about. If so, what will happen next? There is no doubt about this. As long as you are not a fool, you will know it. Please. This is a real world. And in such a real world, is there only power that is displayed on the surface? Stop it. This is simply impossible, because this is a real world, so it is said. No matter what happens, it is a very normal thing. The reason is very simple. In the eyes of anyone, everyone is very understand, this is the foundation of absolute strength, and since it can become famous in the sea, and has left the foundation for decades, even hundreds of years, or even hundreds of years, this is the most important thing. Or, this is the most fundamental core and the most terrifying thing. After so many years of accumulation, do they really have no power at all? Stop making trouble. This is the strangest thing, even the say. Is it okay to make people feel the most bizarre thing? If someone really thinks this way, it is estimated that even if they die, they don't know how they died, then it is simply an idiot-like behavior. In other words, no one knows what the next result will be. Woo. With a puff of smoke, Alan continued, but, although I don't care, this is also an opportunity to train these little devils well. After this war in Atom Kingdom, these little devils must have discovered a lot of problems. Their strength is still too weak. It's simply not worth mentioning. Listening to the words of my eldest brother, everyone present nodded earnestly. This is indeed the case. As long as anyone who is not an idiot can feel it, the strength displayed by Atom Kingdom this time is absolutely terrifying, and it is so terrifying. Strength, so what's next? That's the most important thing. Remember, this is the most important and fundamental thing, this. It is absolutely something that does not need to be doubted at all. This is absolutely the most important and the core of the absolute thing. This is absolutely something that does not need to be doubted. So, all this is in front of you, as long as you are not an idiot. Or, as long as you are not a fool, you should be very clear, and then the result will be anything. This is very important, and it is extremely important. There is absolutely no doubt about it. After all, Atom's kingdom has shown such power. Can you guarantee that other countries are as simple as they seem? Obviously, this is impossible, and no one can guarantee it. This is absolutely undoubted thing. It can be said, above this sea, as long as they are not idiots, they are very clear about what the overall strength of this sea looks like. This is absolutely beyond doubt, and it is the foundation of everything. There is absolutely nothing that can't be changed. In the past, these children just thought that the powerful ones on the sea were the big pirate groups, but now, they understand that it is not just that, but there are other things with the same powerful strength. This is definitely a very important thing, because of this. The major forces dare not have any carelessness. After all, no one knows what these old silver coin guys are hiding. And these little devils also understand that they and others must not be too careless, which is of course a good thing. Big brother. Miko thought for a while and said, if this is the case, in the next period of time, it must be. There will be more and more troubles. How should we deal with all this? Obviously, this is something that Mizi also needs to consider. This is not a joke. It is a real fact, after all. This is very important. No joke, you have to be very clear. Since these people have shot themselves, then the next step others will also take action, just to see what the attitude of the Whitebeard Pirates is. This is a very important thing. If the attitude of the Whitebeard Pirates is that it doesn't matter at all, then everything is completely different, and even to say that there may be a very big problem, there is absolutely no doubt about it. It can be said, if the Whitebeard Pirates have an attitude of not intending to resist, then for these lunatics, they have other ideas, and the strength of your Whitebeard Pirates does not seem to be too strong. If this is the case, then, I don't need to be merciful. Because of this, these guys will never have any hesitation, and even say, for them, the next thing is to become it's interesting. Because of this, how this matter will turn out next is the most important thing, isn't it? Alan thought a little, then shook his head calmly, very indifferently, the corners of his mouth grinned, and then said with a smile, Miko. You have to know, since these guys have shot at us, then. Of course, we don't need to hesitate, just directly destroy them all. 35. Hee. Cruel killing intent emerged, and Alan was full of endless terror, raised one hand, as if to hold everything in the palm of his hand, and said cruelly, the next thing is not to become anything interesting. Just right. Let me see, what will happen next. Hee. Cruel killing intent is really terrifying. Alan's words really mean no mercy. In other words, this is what Alan likes to do most, this terrifying monster called the devil, but there is absolutely no intention of showing mercy. Joke. A guy like Alan, you expect him to be merciful. Stop it. This is absolutely impossible. This terrifying monster, from beginning to end, will never hesitate. This is absolutely beyond doubt, and Alan this guy, the next strength is what is the most important thing. Or, this is the core basis for the whole world to judge the Whitebeard Pirates. After all, why are few people daring to provoke the Whitebeard Pirates? The reason is very simple. The Whitebeard Pirates are ruthless. No matter at any time, all without any mercy. And because of this is the core reason for the strength of the Whitebeard Pirates. In other words, this is the most important fundamental reason for the strength of the Whitebeard Pirates. At this point, there is absolutely no need to doubt. 5.9 is it. This is the most important point of the Whitebeard Pirates. It is also the most fundamental core strength. This is absolutely no doubt, isn't it? Therefore, this is the most terrifying power of the Whitebeard Pirates, as long as they are not idiots, they are very clear. If the three Edward brothers really show their weak side, then those lunatics are like smelling blood. Like a madman, it will sweep in immediately, and this is a very scary thing. After all, everyone is very clear. If such a result, what will happen next? Woo. Taking a deep breath of smoke, Alan grinned and said interestingly, I am very much looking forward to the arrival of these guys, after all. If these guys are too weak, then I will feel that very boring thing. Miko, don't worry, no matter who it is. If you dare to come to our Whitebeard Pirates to make trouble, then you have to pay for it. And what is the price? He. Very easy. This is the price of death. I have to see who is stronger and who is more prepared, but I will not be polite. 35. Snapped. Clenching his fist with one hand, terrifying killing intent burst out in his eyes. That's right. This is Alan's idea, since you want to make trouble. Of course it's no problem. I won't have any hesitation at all, and there will be no politeness. Laozi will kill you directly, this is what Laozi thinks. It is what Laozi is best at, isn't it? P.S. 5,000 word chapter. Daily 6 updates. Second update. Please subscribe. Please customize. Please collect. Chapter 267. The world's 3 major intelligence organizations. You come and hit me. Then let me hold on like this. Alan doesn't know what other people think, but anyone who knows Alan a little is very clear, this lunatic can't do such a thing, and this lunatic won't be merciful like this, otherwise. This guy just won't be called a madman like monster. Goo la la la. Newgate laughed arrogantly. Brother. Seriously, I'm really looking forward to it. Who is it? After all, if it's too weak, but it's too boring. No. That's true. Worororo. Kaido also grinned, showing a hideous smile, and the whole person was full of crazy looks, as if he didn't care about all of this, but anyone who knows Kaido a little knows that Kaido is all about these, but it is full of endless madness, and there will be no mercy for him to start. Humph. 35. What? The two brothers looked at each other and saw the horror and madness in each other's eyes, and they would never show any mercy when they attacked. Search. He licked the corner of his mouth slightly, and Alan's breath has gradually become more and more terrifying, even speaking. It makes people feel endlessly frightened, this terrifying monster, but the most terrifying monster on the sea, and since if so, what kind of power does this monster have? It's definitely something to take seriously, isn't it? 10 years have passed. Alan has just defeated Adam in the past 10 years, but in the eyes of many people, the strength of Alan is not particularly clear, it seems to be the case. But only this monster really shows when you show your own strength. At that time, the entire sea is the terror that will become the best. It also makes everyone understand what the next result will be. Miko thought for a while and said, Brother, you can ask Shaki to buy information on this matter, although it is said. I don't know if Shaki has accurate information, but according to Shaki's ability, the possibility of having information is very high. Alan nodded in agreement and said, 06, no problem. Okay, brother. Miko took out the phone bug and started dialing the phone bug about Shaki. Actually, how to say, Shaki's intelligence ability is actually a very special ability, which makes people feel very strange ability, as everyone knows. For many people, everything else is indifferent, but just go on. Shaki's intelligence ability is very good special, as if Shaki is very clear about all this, and this is the most strange thing. Indeed, many people's intelligence has their own clear sources of intelligence, no matter what. These people have their own abilities, and under such circumstances, Shaki can obtain a lot of information, and the source of these intelligence is in the end. What is it? No one knows. Even, it feels very strange, because it is too strange. Shaki can always get such precious information, even to say. Many people don't know the information, Shaki can still get it, which is why Shaki's attack has always been so dark, but for this sea. There are still many people looking for Shaki to buy information. The reason is very simple, Shaki's information is very accurate and very clear, to put it bluntly. The information that Shaki tells you must be true. At this point, Shaki is a very clear person, since I said, then it must be true information, but that everything else, it's a meaningless thing. For those who sell intelligence, there are 3 people on the sea, Stussy's Happy Island, although Happy Island is called a red light district, but this is just a job on the bright side, after all. Gentle Township is Hero Tomb, and because of this, information is very easy to get. As long as you are not an idiot, you are very clear about this. In the Gentle Village, everything you can get next is still very rich. This is something that does not need to be doubted at all. And besides that, it's Linlin. The Big Mom pirate group established by Linlin has the top source of intelligence above the sea, and this is the most dignified thing. After all, no one can imagine that Linlin, your intelligence is so amazing. Only, the last person is Shaki, and Shaki is located in the Sabayati archipelago, which is a place where the 3 religions and 9 streams, and the Gyuki snake gods are gathered. In such a place, as long as you are not an idiot, you will be very clear. What will happen next? What happened? Because of this, Shaki's information is absolutely accurate, otherwise, it's almost impossible to make a name for yourself in Sabayati Archipelago. Other than that, everything else needs to be considered. That's it. The Stussy family is backed by the world government. As the underground emperor arranged by the world government, there is absolutely no doubt that he has a wealth of intelligence capabilities. And Linlin has a strong strength, relying on his own marriage to obtain a lot of intelligence networks, plus many other things, and thus constructed a lot of everything. This is the fundamental reason. Third point. This is the question about Shaki. Seriously, Shaki's source of intelligence makes people feel very outrageous, and it is very strange to destroy everyone. What is the source of Shaki's intelligence? Unfortunately, although it makes people feel outrageous, but above this sea, no one knows what is going on, after all. There are some things, even if you want to know, people will not say it, and Shaki is not. I will say this thing out, and because of this situation, many people are taboo. After all, this is not a joke, no one knows. What is behind Shaki, if it is really a terrifying behemoth? In the end, if he comes to trouble himself, isn't it a dead thing? Because of this, no one go to the trouble of Shaki. Blue. With the sound of this sound, with the ringing of the phone bug, Shaki's voice came out from the phone bug. Brother Alan. Big brother Newgate. Big brother Kaido. Long time no see. 35. Shaki's voice came, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and a wisp of smoke was exhaled, and he smiled and said, 3 big brothers. It's really been a long time, but you may have been a little troublesome this time. Actually, it's not a trouble. For the 3 big brothers, this matter is not a big deal. Really? Alan grinned and said interestingly, Shaki. Sure enough, it is the most suitable thing to find you. You know so much information, tell me. What is going on? What happened? Alan thought it was very interesting, leaning on the sofa. A funny smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The strong smile is really very interesting, after all. What will happen next? It's not that I have any other ideas. It's just that, Shaki obviously already knows something, which is very interesting. The war in Adam's kingdom has only ended in 3 days. And in this short period of time, Shaki has obtained complete information, which is very interesting. What will be the next result? This is also a very interesting thing, isn't it? This matter. As long as you are not an idiot, you will be very clear about what will happen next. This matter is definitely not a joke, or rather, this is a very interesting thing. Shaki can get so much so early got information, but it's very interesting. The corners of Alan's mouth twitched, and he said interestingly, as expected of you. Shaki, you have obtained such complete information in such a short period of time. Sure enough, your ability in information is really shocking. 35. Woo. Breathing out a puff of smoke, Shaki smiled and said, Brother Alan, isn't this a normal thing? After all, I'm also an intelligence businessman. That's the thing, if it's too late, it's going to be very troublesome to make a fortune. 99. Shaki's meaning is very obvious, come on. Brother Alan, I have very complete information here, if you want, then come and take it. Ha. Listening to Shaki's words, Alan waved his hand casually and said, okay. It's okay. I know, you don't have to say so much, just say it. How much is the price of your intelligence sales? Billion Baileys. And this information is absolutely unique, Brother Alan, you can rest assured that there will be absolutely no mistakes in this information. Shaki directly gave an astronomical figure. That's right, this is an astronomical figure. Although intelligence is very expensive. However, the figure of 1 billion Bailey is too expensive. The level of confidence is down, and under such huge numbers. Obviously, this is the most important thing, since Shaki gave this price. However, what Shaki knows most is that he has absolute certainty. His own information. There is absolutely no doubt about it, there will be no problems. After thinking for a while, Alan nodded and said, no problem. Shaki, 1 billion Baileys. It will be delivered to you soon, other than that. Just send the information directly to me, Laozi. I'm curious, how many people are targeting Laozi? A cruel smile appeared. Alan's killing intent was very terrifying, and what happened next was a very interesting thing. What would the next result be? A cruel smile appeared. Alan was I look forward to it very much. These people who are targeting me should not be too weak. After all, if they are too weak, it will be too boring for me. Listening to Alan's words, Shaki also smiled and said, no problem. Brother Alan, this matter. It's definitely an unquestionable thing, don't worry. No problem. 5, The phone worm hung up, and as the phone worm hung up, Alan said interestingly, I can only say. It's Shaki. It's such a complete information so quickly, maybe. The other party's alliance has just at the end, Shaki has obtained complete information. It is really very interesting. Yes. Listening to Alan's words, Newgate also nodded and said, Shaki's information, no matter at any time, as long as you ask. Then basically you can find the perfect information. It's really interesting. Seriously, yes, it really makes people feel very curious. What is the source of Shaki's intelligence? This is the most interesting thing. Isn't it? Indeed. And Mizi nodded in agreement. Big brother. Second brother is right. Intelligence is not like everything else, and a lot of information can be obtained for powerful people. And if it is only powerful, even saying, are unable to obtain a complete intelligence organization, this is absolutely beyond doubt. Mizi is very clear. Strength. Power 970. The two are completely different, and if you want to obtain complete information, then the most important thing is power, which can bring you complete and sufficient information. As for pure strength, then it is not an exaggeration to say that it is meaningless at all. It can be said, it is a meaningless thing. Pure strength. The improvement it brings to oneself is almost meaningless. It is almost impossible to obtain information, and Shaki. It seems that there is no strength, nor any power, the result is such an ability. This is a very interesting thing. In other words, this matter, the next information, this is the most important thing. Shaki can get a lot of information so easily, this is the most important and the core thing. Everyone is squinting slightly and thinking about something. What is it? This is something no one knows. But for sure, the next thing is very interesting. He smiled and said very interestingly. I think this is very interesting. What is the information of this girl Shaki? However, 35. Forget it. 35. Alan waved his hands casually and said, this has nothing to do with Laozi, no matter what Shaki's information is. Is Alan really not interested in this intelligence? This thing. It's meaningless at all. Anyway, I don't lack money, so I can just get the information I want directly. Other than that, those things are simply just a meaningless thing. Listening to her elder brother's words, Miko also shook her head and said, brother, I will take over the information sent by Shaki, and I will be back soon. Ha ha ha. Listening to Alan's words, Kaido curled his lips and said, brother. Isn't this a matter of course? If Miko is not good enough, it's impossible for me to marry Miko. P.S. 5,000 word chapter. Daily 6 updates. Third update. Please subscribe. Please customize. Please collect. Both Alan and Newgate were laughed at by Kaido, and Alan just joked. You bastard. Say you are fat. You are still breathing. Okay. I don't bother to talk about so much an intimacy. By the way, pay attention to Laozi. The next thing is also very need to be considered. I want to see, who are the people who dare to trouble me? 99. Alan nodded casually, and when Miko left, he said jokingly, the third child. I'm not saying, Miko is really good. It's really good that you can find Miko. 99. Cut. Just right. Goo la la la. Chapter 268. Madness and fury are the standard for pirates. Soon, Mako had already returned with the purchased information, put the heavy information on the table, and said, Big brother, second brother, Kaido, this time, a total of countries involved. Forces. Organizations. There are a total of 40 people, the strength of joining hands is also very amazing, there is no doubt about this. Oh, 39. Hearing this, Alan actually became interested and said interestingly, the alliance of 40 organizations. It's interesting. Just right, I want to see what the strength of these guys is on this ocean. Quote. 99. A cruel smile appeared, and Alan's killing intent was too terrifying, as long as he wasn't an idiot, he could see how ruthless this man would be. This man, but there would never be any merciful. Search. Licking the corner of his mouth slightly, Alan was flipping through everything in his hand, the smile on the corner of his mouth was extremely strong, but he wanted to see what was going on next. You can say it without hesitation. The next thing is the most interesting thing, isn't it? This is the most interesting thing. It is the most interesting thing, after all. On this ocean, countries, organizations, forces, in all aspects, these are too many, and the number of these together is too huge. Superpower. Dark Emperor. These are the most powerful forces, but what about other than that? Actually, there are still many other strengths, whether it is an affiliated country, or a country that has never joined, or other underground organizations, including the Underground Emperor, in fact. These are all a part of this world, they are part of all aspects of this world, it cannot be said that they are weak, but there is absolutely no need to doubt that they are absolutely terrible enough in all aspects. After all, this world is huge enough, these are all in front of us, there is no doubt about it. It can be said that the next thing is the most important thing, even to say. Everything needs to be carefully considered, this one point. You must be very clear to consider this point. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And beyond that, as long as they are not idiots, they are very clear. Although they say that their strength alone may not be considered powerful. After all, they are only small forces. However, when they join forces, their strength is very terrifying. This is absolutely undoubted. In terms of overall strength, they are absolutely undoubted. This is real strength, definitely not a joke. It is real strength. Woo. He let out a faint puff of smoke, and Alan's expression was filled with endless calm, and he said very interestingly, Okay. It's very interesting. Next, just wait and see, I really want to see it. Look, when will these guys join forces? Don't be too late, otherwise, I will feel too boring. A cruel smile appeared. Alan's killing intent was absolutely terrifying, there was no joke. Just kidding, since you dare to trouble Laozi. Well, you have to pay for it. No matter who it is. You all have to pay for it. You don't think that the next thing will be a very simple thing, do you? Quite the contrary. The next thing is the most terrifying thing. If you think it is really a very simple thing, then it is the most terrifying thing. What a strange thing. Search. Licking the corner of his mouth slightly, Alan thought it was very interesting. What will happen next? This is the most interesting thing. Ooh, Worororo. The three brothers are all smiling, and everyone is very strong, obviously. For the three brothers, they are very much looking forward to everything that will happen next. After all, no one knows what will happen next. What is it, and what is the strength of the opponent? That's the most interesting thing, isn't it? Therefore, this is the most interesting thing, and it is the thing that people look forward to the most. But don't let people down. Now that you have joined forces, if people feel disappointed, that would be too boring. What will the next result be? This is the most interesting thing, isn't it? It can be said, Alan has already done all this, and it is full of endless indifference. For all this, he has already made perfect preparations. Next, let me see what the next result will be. Search. Licking the corners of his mouth slightly, Alan said interestingly, to put it bluntly. You don't need to be too careless about the rest of the things, it's not a big deal anyway. These things can be dealt with casually. Anyway, it's not a big deal. Alan thinks it doesn't matter, anyway. In daily life, the Whitebeard Pirates have nothing to do. So, just treat it as a spectacle, let's see what the result is, and what they can do, what kind of means. Isn't this fun? Therefore, everyone thinks it is very interesting, and the next thing is the most interesting thing. Alan's smile is very strong, but he wants to see, next. What kind of things these people can do, this is not a joke. It is a real fact, but Alan really wants to see. After all, for myself, the past 10 years, for myself now, continue to go overseas. Of course, it is not the same as watching the fun, although it is said. It is not a good thing for someone to make trouble. But this is also interesting thing, isn't it? Although you said that you are looking for trouble. But I don't care about it at all. Just, let me see what the next result will be, then that's fine. I also want to see how it turned out. Then all this. Then is the most interesting thing. He. A funny smile emerged. Alan's killing intent can be said to be full of endless terror. It is full of terrible killing intent. This is definitely not a joke. But, the same thing is, Alan's smile, it's full of fun excitement. What is the next result? This is the most interesting thing. Search. Licking the corner of his mouth slightly, Alan's smile can be said to be very rich and very excited. The next result is the most interesting thing, and it is also the most exciting thing. Whitebeard Pirates. Peaceful day. It should be what it is, after all. Although it is said that the war in the Atom Kingdom has passed, it seems that it does not matter at all to the Whitebeard Pirates. No matter what, the strength of the Whitebeard Pirates is the real deal is here, and there is no doubt about it. In this case, there are usually not too many things, actually. This is the case for most pirates, and the daily life is very calm, not to say. If you really leave the sea, it is every day. It is magnificent, this is pure nonsense. Or, it is like a joke. Wouldn't it be a joke if everything was really that simple? This is pure nonsense. If everything was so easy to tell the truth, then everything would be the strangest thing. Even the strangest things that make people feel, these things. Not at all, it's so easy there. This is the normal voyage of the big pirates, and if it is the weak pirates, then it still needs to be considered. There are problems that may arise every day, this is it. There is absolutely no doubt about it. After all, for pirates, there are still a lot of troubles, and it is also a very important thing to be able to handle all this well. The strength of pirates. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Wei let out a breath of turbid air, and Abel had just finished his daily training, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Seriously, Abel is a real handsome guy. In terms of appearance, it's really not a joke. Brother Abel, someone is looking for trouble. How to deal with it? Looking for trouble. Just after taking a rest, Abel heard such a sound, and instantly fluttered his wings and disappeared in place. For Abel, these are all indifferent things, but Abel wants to see, who is coming. Who is it? Brush. Immediately disappeared without a trace. Abel's speed was extremely fast, like an afterimage, and disappeared in place in an instant. And that's Abel's strength. At the same time, not far away, a pirate ship came straight to the Moby Dick. Ha ha ha. The leader of the pirate captain let out a deafening roar, and the whole person seemed to be laughing excitedly, little ones. But it's too exciting. Exactly. Let me take a look. Next, what the hell is going on here? This is the Moby Dick. The Whitebeard Pirates defeated this pirate group, and we will be number 1 in the world. Oh who? What responded to the captain was a frantic roar. For these pirates, this is what they look forward to the most. The most important thing for pirates to go to sea is their own reputation, if they don't even have a reputation. Then this pirate is not a qualified pirate. This is true for any pirate. They are full of endless madness, but also endless horror. This is what these pirates like to do. And for these pirates, the next thing is very interesting. Next, what will be the result? Hehe. This is a very interesting thing. They don't care whether they are an opponent or not, for pirates. All they have to do is to attack, attack, attack. There is absolutely no hesitation. This is the character of pirates. Maybe, in the eyes of many people, isn't the pirate like trying to die? Indeed. For most people, the pirate is trying to die, which is obviously an idiot's behavior. As long as there is a brain, it is impossible to do such a thing. But, this kind of thing is done, and most of the pirates will never have any hesitation. This is why, the pirates are basically the fundamental reason why they are called lunatics. In fact, everything is like this simple, no matter what the reason is. This is the pirate. And these guys are a group of real terrifying lunatics, and what will such lunatics possibly do next? Actually, as long as they are not idiots, they are very clear. For these lunatics, they don't care about everything. They just know that the opportunity is in front of them. If they can't seize such an opportunity, they will be forever I won't forgive myself. Yes, this is the idea of these pirates. For all pirates, this is the madness that comes from their souls and their hearts. This is the madness of pirates. It is also the most incomprehensible madness for everyone. Why? Why are pirates so crazy? This is the thing that makes everyone feel the difference the most. But whether you feel the difference or not, it's all in front of you, because pirates have always been like this. 6 inches fire. Ha ha ha. Kill. With the command of the captain waving the captain's knife, all the pirates made a deafening roar, fired wildly, and launched an attack frantically. For them, they were like a leaf in front of the Moby Dick. Like a boat, but they just don't care. Die. Fear. Fear. Stop making trouble. This is already impossible. Remember, for the pirates, they have no such idea at all. What they want to do is to kill each other completely, as for the other everything of. Feel sorry. They are simply not interested in things. Maybe they will die, but remember, since you chose to go to sea, it may be different in the future era, but in this era, pirates are the endorsement of a group of lunatics. After all, when the pirates already need to cede the land to be king. Maybe their strength is more powerful, Nuo Zhao's, maybe their spirit is even more amazing, but you must admit that this also represents them debilitating. This is absolutely beyond doubt. It can be said, this is the fundamental core of pirates. Don't forget, you are a pirate. And as a pirate, you chose to cede land as king. So are you still a pirate? You can't even go out to sea as a pirate arrive. This is completely meaningless, and this is why Whitebeard is called the root cause of the strongest pirate group. The reason is very simple. The Whitebeard Pirates have no base, although many islands are their territory, but there is indeed no basis for it. But, P.S. 5,000 word chapter. Daily 6 updates. 4th update. Please subscribe. Please customize. Please collect. Over time, the Whitebeard Pirates were still navigators on the sea, and they were still sailing as pirates. Why did the Whitebeard Pirates in the original book attack naval headquarters for Ace? But after knowing the news of Kazuki Oden's death, they didn't attack Wanokuni's lungs. The reason for this is very simple. The statement given by Whitebeard is that this is to avoid greater damage. Or, there may be problems in starting a war, but do you think this sentence is scientific? Even said, the Whitebeard Pirates are all dare to attack naval headquarters directly. Don't forget, in the eyes of the Whitebeard Pirates, Kazuki Oden is a betrayal. He betrayed the Whitebeard Pirates and joined the rival Roger Pirates. Isn't that the biggest problem? Obviously, this the problem, as long as it is not an idiot, is very clear. Because of this, Whitebeard gave up saving Wanokuni. The root cause of this is actually very simple. That is, the Whitebeard Pirates do not recognize Kazuki Oden. Although it is said that Marco and Izomiku both chose to help, but that is for a special reason. As for talking, Chapter 269. Horse Spell. Marco. Pirates. It's always been like this. They're a bunch of crazy guys. Do you expect any sane thing from these guys? Hehe. Do not joke. If it were really that simple, then pirates would not be pirates. Don't think it's a joke. Pirates have never been a group of rational guys, on the contrary. For these lunatics, they are such a group of monsters, they don't care about everything else at all, they only care about madness. Boom, 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 boom. With the terrifying roar, the shells swept in an instant and landed directly on the Moby Dick, but a strange scene appeared, but this scene made all pirates one in a daze. They saw that the Moby Dick was unscathed. At this moment, they were all dazed, as if they did not expect such a thing to happen. And the fact is that, for this sea, all these things are beyond doubt, and the firmness of the Moby Dick is definitely something that does not need to be doubted. It can be said. This is the real Moby Dick. The owner can be called, it seems to be, an invincible defense. This is the most terrifying absolute defense, is not an exaggeration. Humph. The corner of his mouth evoked a smile, and at this moment, a figure flashed across the sky in an instant. Brush. It was Abel's figure, and he looked down at the pirates below. There was only endless calm in his eyes, and he opened one hand behind him. Gollum. Gollum. The terrifying magma was boiling, and this monstrous magma suddenly fell like this, as if it was going to devour everything, as if it was an invincible force, and it made everyone fall into silence. However, a little thinking, it seems to be a matter of course. After all, this is Abel's strength, and looking at the eruption of the volcano that fell from the sky, everyone fell into silence, as if. At this moment, they have seen the fall of death, this terrifying death, in an instant devoured them all. Boom. The endless roar exploded wildly. This is really too fast. In this short period of time, everything. All fell into silence in this short period of time, as if. This is all the same, and this scene is the most terrifying thing, and this kind of terrifying is the most terrifying thing. Woo. Looking at the pirates who were instantly destroyed below, Abel's expression was filled with endless calm, as if he didn't care about all this, his eyes were filled with endless calm and indifference. It's just a bunch of weaklings. But, this is a pirate. With a look of emotion, Abel did not continue to say anything next, because this is a meaningless thing at all, in that case. Then, as long as it is not an idiot, it is very clear that it contains what is it, and what is going to happen next, there is absolutely no doubt about it. And Abel handled all this and left. Actually, this is a pirate. At any time, pirates are such a group of crazy, terrifying, endless cruelty and mindless guys. For pirates, all they want is war. What they want is madness. This is pirate character. This is the case at any time. For pirates, they don't care who the enemy in front of them is, but will attack directly. In an interesting way, it is. For pirates, don't think about that more, but it is enough to launch an attack directly. This is the most important thing. Don't tell me who the enemy is, just tell me where the enemy is. This is the character of a pirate. Does it sound like a strange thing? But, this is the character of a pirate. And these pirates, like terrifying lunatics, don't care about everything else. All they have to do is launch a terrorist attack to deal with all this. This is the madness of pirates. As for the so-called strategy, the so-called plan. Stop it. That has never been something that pirates are good at. For lunatics like pirates, they really don't know, or rarely use these things. Laozi is not your opponent. Then it must be because Laozi is too weak. Otherwise, how could Laozi not be your opponent? Therefore, under such a state of mind, everything has become completely different, even to say. Let everything seem to have changed. This is the most interesting thing. This is what is about to happen. For the past, because of this is the madness of the pirates. To be honest, why didn't the Whitebeard Pirates in the original book attack Wano Kuni? It's not because of any reason, those are just excuses. For the Whitebeard Pirates, they were the reason for Kazuki Oden's betrayal. As the captain of his own second division, he joined someone else's pirate group. This is absolutely unacceptable, because of this. The so-called various reasons are just because of the reasons for Yizang. In fact, for Yizang, he is gradually becoming more and more dissatisfied. Actually, it can be seen from the deaths in the original work that Ashura and Izo are the only people who died in this war. Why? In fact, the reason is very simple. Izo is no longer a simple retainer of the Kazuki family. He is no longer a pure Kazuki retainer, everything has changed. And Ashura Duji, he recognized not the Kazuki clan, but the person Kazuki Oden. Because of this, all of these are the most important fundamental core. Under the circumstances of covering that up, what will the next result be? These two people are no longer suitable. Therefore, it is the most appropriate thing to let these two people die in the war. Of course, everything else needs to be said, and the death of Azang and Ashura is also a good thing, after all. For them, everything that was once is in the past, and since it is in the past, then it is here to die. It is the best thing to fall down here completely. They have accomplished everything they want to accomplish, even if they fall down, it doesn't matter. But, again, pirates are a bunch of crazy guys. Since they can't attack, it's definitely not because of their weakness, but because of other reasons, and it's not because of the so-called peace or tranquility. It's nothing but meaningless things. These, for the so-called pirates, actually. They are nothing at all. For the pirates, the pirates really don't care at all. Woo. He let out a sigh of turbid air, and Abel was filled with endless calm. Looking at everything in front of him, he finally turned around and disappeared without a trace in an instant. Abel's speed is very fast, it can be said. The speed disappeared instantly. Brush. With Abel's departure, and this battle ended like this, it seems to be a very simple thing. In fact, this is not a strange thing, or rather, it is a very normal thing. After all, for the Whitebeard Pirates, as the world's #1 pirate group, this is recognized by everyone. And it's not strange that such a pirate group comes to the door to ask for trouble, it's a very normal thing, especially for the current situation. There are many people who want to make a wave on this sea. There are really many people, and for the madmen like pirates, they seize the opportunity, but they will never give up. Because of this, these crazy sees what the thieves did next was the most terrifying and craziest, and they didn't even show mercy at all. With Abel's departure, this is the third time in the past few days, and the war with Atom Kingdom is just 3 days, which also means that in these short 3 days China. Such wars have happened 3 times or even more. And Abel is naturally accustomed to this kind of situation, after all. The number of times he has dealt with is really too many, and these things, he has dealt with a lot of times casually, naturally. Abel is also the slightest bit about this. Just don't care. Anyway, it doesn't matter, to put it another way. That is already used to it, and since it is already used to it, then everything that follows is naturally no need to doubt it at all. Woo. AGFJ, he exhaled a deep breath of smoke, while Alan stood on the head of the whale and watched everything in front of him casually. Wow. The captain's coat on his body rattled with the wind, and Alan said casually, looking at it now. Everything seems to be quite simple. It's a small problem anyway. It doesn't need to be taken too seriously. Quote. Alan feels very casual, after all. It's just a bunch of little devils. And it's too easy to deal with such little devils, even to say. It's just an easy thing to do. After all, this is just a group of little devils, and how are such little devils going to be dealt with? That is really too easy. It is even said that for this sea, these things are simply easy things, these children, if you can survive, then it is your destiny. And if you can't survive. Then it's a pity. This is your destiny, obviously. You are not particularly suitable for this sea. At least, you can't survive this sea. Uncle. Marco fluttered his wings and galloped, landing directly on Alan's side, and said with a smile, Uncle. How did you come here? 39. Alan looked at Marco and said casually, What's wrong? Is there a problem somewhere? Marco scratched his head and said, Uncle. Did something important happen? It's just. Why are you here? Alan said casually, Just look at the scenery in the distance. And. Alan looked at Marco, but was thinking about something in his heart, and looking at Alan's expression, Marco always had a very strange feeling. It seemed that he didn't know what to say, and that feeling was very strange, seems to be very different. In the end, Alan shook his head and said, Forget it. It's not a big deal anyway. In fact, in terms of strength, Marco, you are almost qualified. After all, it is impossible for you to achieve such strength at this age. The problem is. Question mark! 35. Marco is really full of question marks, and he doesn't understand what it means at all. This is really not Marco joking, but a lot of facts. Marco is really very confused. What is this? What? It's like a joke. Because of this, Marco really feels very weird, and he doesn't understand what the uncle is talking about. And Alan has his own considerations. To be frank. 8 demons, 12 spells, 9 ghosts mask, and these are all about finding a suitable master and letting them come to the master with the divine power and magic energy. This is a very suitable thing, and as long as all these are masters, the improvement in strength is also very terrifying. This is absolutely a fundamental thing for the overall improvement of the Whitebeard Pirates. The improvement brought by this time absolutely does not need to be doubted. And, except for the rabbit charm for Guion, the dragon charm for Kaido, and the dog charm for Newgate, there seems to be no other suitable owner for these 3 charms. Actually, a lot of people are very suitable, but Alan has been thinking about it all the time, should I just hand it over to them? After all, the overall strength, or everything else, needs to be grown and obtained prematurely such power, for these little guys. There is no need to doubt their betrayal. The reason is very simple, as long as you accept the power of Alan, you will maintain absolute loyalty, which is the loyalty from the soul, so say. This is absolutely impossible to betray. However, one point is still very clear, the thing is, you absolutely have to understand. Although, there is no betrayal. But, what if there are other fundamental reasons? Actually, as long as you are not an idiot, you are very clear, the next thing is the most important, and is the fundamental core. If the master becomes arrogant after this power arrogant, then things. It just becomes more troublesome. Because of this, after a little thought, Alan temporarily gave up the idea. After all, no joke, this matter is one of the most important things, which needs to be handled carefully and seriously. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Therefore, Alan still understands this very well, he knows. What will the next result be? Even more clear. If we continue, what will the result be? Woo. A puff of smoke was exhaled, and Alan's expression was full of indifference. It is undeniable. Marco is indeed a very suitable candidate, there is absolutely no doubt about it, after all. Marco is in his own teaching under. It can be said, the speed of growth is very fast, and he is almost one of the most suitable candidates in any aspect. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Marco is excellent enough in talent and in all aspects, there is no need to doubt it. A smile emerged, and a light burst from Alan's hands. After all, P.S. 5,000 word chapter. Daily 6 updates. 5th update. Please subscribe. Please customize. Please collect. P.S. Brothers, there should be only 5 watch today. It's so tiring. I can't bear it anymore. The era of the Whitebeard Pirates has come. Since it has come, let's make the storm even more terrifying. He. Alan chuckled. Marco, this is a gift for you. But try harder. If there is no such talent, Marco is the most embarrassing thing. He definitely has enough talent, and he is a very trusted talent, and Alan naturally feels that, in fact, it is almost the same. Down, these children want to continue to grow, but it is time to hand over these magical powers, demonic energy, and ghost masks to these children and let them grow up. Chapter 270, Healing Divine Power. The light bloomed, and as a strange force bloomed from Alan's hands, it slowly melted into his body under Marco's surprised and bewildered gaze. What power is this? Marco's expression was ecstatic and filled with unspeakable tension. How could he not know what the uncle is doing? This is the gift that everyone in the entire Whitebeard Pirates dream of. Power is given. At present, only Guillaume, the daughter of the father, the third uncle and the uncle, has won such an honor, and now this kind of good luck has come to him. What a surprise. Just like a dream. Marco was full of thoughts for a moment, but soon, the surprise in his heart was swallowed up and replaced by a sense of physical pleasure. The cells all over his body seemed to have been baptized as never before by 973, trembling comfortably, and the dark wounds left by countless previous battles were also healed in an instant. It was an indescribable joy that even made Marco moan. As that magical power merged into the body, a wonderful feeling also appeared in Marco's mind. It seems. Now he has infinite healing power. Any injury, as long as there is still a breath, he can restore it in an instant. The light gradually disappeared, and the strange feeling gradually faded, but Marco's expression was still sluggish. Looking down at his body, he could clearly feel that he was completely reborn now. This power is so powerful. In other words, it was unbelievable, as if it directly gave him a very strong devil fruit ability. Looking up at the smiling Alan in front of him in disbelief, Marco's face suddenly became solemn. He knelt down on one knee, and said solemnly, "Thank you, Big Bon." Looking at the serious Marco, Alan also smiled and nodded slightly, and then said casually, "Okay, I will work hard in the future to become a strong person who can be on my own as soon as possible." After that, Alan turned around and left. Looking up at Alan's back, Marco suddenly felt an unprecedented blood rushing through his body. Is it a strong man alone? So I'm still very weak now. Uncle really hits people. A wry smile appeared on his face. You must know that he is already a big pirate with a bounty of 1.5 billion. It was enough to frighten one side, but in Alan's eyes, it seemed that he was just a young boy who had not grown up. But thinking about it is also true. With his current strength, I am afraid that he will be instantly killed by the uncle. Showing a bitter smile, he shook his head helplessly, but Marco's eyes became incomparably resolute. Two bright lights shot out, staring at the back of the stalwart. Don't worry, uncle, I will grow up as soon as possible, protect the Whitebeard Pirates, and protect our home. Marco clenched his fists and said in a low voice as if swearing. He understands that with their destruction of Adam's kingdom, they are now on the cusp of a storm. The wood show will be destroyed by the forest wind. Although they are now infinitely beautiful, they are also accompanied by this endless crisis. The Whitebeard Pirates are now the most eye-catching targets in the entire sea, and everyone is staring at them, trying to destroy them. Especially under the impetus of the world government, the establishment of the 40-nation alliance is definitely an unprecedented powerful force. And this power is completely aimed at them, and the goal is to destroy the Whitebeard Pirates. If the uncle came to give him strength at this time, he should also prepare in advance to overcome this crisis. Thinking of this, Marco's expression also became solemn. Marco, don't be in a daze, there seems to be a marine. While Marcos was thinking about it, the voice of Enel, who was in charge of vigilance and investigation, suddenly came over. Marco. Hearing this, Marco was also taken aback. At this time, how could Marine appear here? Could it be the Allies? No, it shouldn't be so fast. Look at your nervous look. Don't worry, it's just a bunch of junk. With a sarcastic grin on Enel's face, he said with a grin as he looked at the place where there was only an endless sea in the distance. Enel's observation hockey is top-notch. With the ability of the Thunder Fruit, it can detect a very wide range, even wider than Alan. It is perfect for detection and warning. Although Marco hasn't seen anything yet, he doesn't doubt Enel's words in the slightest. Aren't you going to take action? Marco looked up at Enel, who had appeared not far behind at an unknown moment, and asked Enel, who was leaning on the mast. The corner of Enel's mouth curled up, looking at Marco with a burning gaze, looking up and down, then stretched lazily. These chops are too weak. I'm not interested. Rather than crushing these ants, I want to see what kind of power the uncle gave you just now. What a lucky guy. Enel, who finished speaking, couldn't help but murmured. Although he didn't say it, he was very envious in his heart. After all, each of the powers that Alan bestows is so outrageous that it subverts common sense. Who wouldn't want to get it? Even if it is stronger than him, it is no exception. Hearing Enel's words, Marco couldn't help showing a smug smile. Yeah, Marco, you lucky guy, keep everyone's eyes open. At this time, Quinn and the others also heard the wind and walked out of the cabin, looking at Marco up and down curiously, with envy in their eyes. Seeing more and more people gathered together, Marco gradually became excited, and he couldn't wait to try out how powerful this newly acquired power was. Being able to use 3 marine warships to personally escort, and such an extravagant giant ship, plus the iconic glass cover, it is self-evident. This huge ship is snow white in its entirety, extremely huge, even more than the Moby Dick, inlaid with countless gold and silver jewels, extremely luxurious, and a huge statue on the bow. It's just that the shape of this statue is extremely funny. It is an ugly fat man wearing a glass cover and a fat face. At this time, when the distant ships approached, everyone also noticed the existence of marine ships. Hiyori looked into the distance playfully, and a playful smile appeared on her pretty face. A giant ship, escorted by 3 marine warships, was approaching the Moby Dick, and they were about to meet soon. 5.9 inches. Yo, interesting, to be able to have 3 marine warships as escorts. It seems that the identity of the comers is not simple. Celestial Dragons. Chapter 271. Celestial Dragons. Roswali. Celestial Dragons. Self-proclaimed nobles of the world, and only they can turn the always arrogant marine into a loyal dog. Wow, ha ha ha. Kill me, keep fighting, dare to stop, I will make your life worse than death. 39. On the treasure ship of St. Roswalis, wearing a glass cover, the whole person is like a man standing up like a fat pig, sitting on the throne and shouting excitedly. Around him were dozens of scantily clad female slaves, all of them tremblingly, carefully serving this ugly man like a fat pig in front of him, but they did not dare to show any disrespect. There is only fear and endless fear. In the hall, under the throne, are 2 men covered in blood, fighting with swords. The men were old and young, and through their scarlet blood-stained faces, they could still see the similarity and sadness between the 2 men's brows. Father. The younger man looked extremely painful, looked at the old man in front of him and cried with tears streaming down his face. Don't be afraid, son, come on, kill me, and live. Must live. Oh 6. The old man was covered in blood and was already weak. Looking at the young man in front of him, his eyes filled with love and reluctance, and then looking at the fat pig on the throne, there was only monstrous resentment in his heart. But helplessly, in the next second, the resentment disappeared without a trace, and there was only grief. There is no way, he is powerless to resist. The opponent is celestial dragons. The world aristocrats, once they provoke them, are enemies of the entire world government. No matter how much power and money you have, you are still a pariah in front of them. Even if he is as strong as Marine, he can only bow his head in front of them, and how can the king of a small country be shaken? Hurry up and kill me, why stop? Do you want me to slaughter your country? The fat pig sitting on the throne immediately roared in dissatisfaction when seeing the 2 of them stagnant. The old man's face was full of sadness, but the next second his expression suddenly became firm, and he used his last strength to hold the sword and charge directly towards his son. Father. Father. Point 35. The young man was at a loss, and instinctively raised his sword to block in a hurry, but the next second. PFF'd. The sound of blood being torn and pierced by the muscles was clear, and he finally embraced his father. Son, you must live. The old man's words rang in the boy's ears, and then his head fell weakly. The young man knelt on the spot in disbelief, his eyes were splitting, watching his father slip from his arms to the ground weakly, and the sword in his hand had already pierced his heart. After a long time, the young man roared in pain, kneeling on the ground and roaring with a nervous breakdown. In the next second, he suddenly turned his head and stared at the guy who was sitting on the throne with a dull look on his face. The anger in his heart was like wildfire, and it devoured his remaining rationality in an instant. Bastard. Demon. I'm going to kill you. Kill you. The young man picked up his father's sword and burst out with all his strength, dashing towards the guy on the throne in an instant. Chong. A sword light flashed by, the sword was cut off in an instant, and the young man's body also froze just 1 step away from the throne. The feeling of death swept through the body. Looking down, a scarlet bloodline emerged from his chest without warning. Bang. The broken sword fell to the ground and let out a clear sound. The young man knelt on the ground weakly, his eyes seemed to pop out of his sockets, staring at the fat pig with a bored face, even full of disgust, and finally, still fell to the ground. The head rolled to one side, scarlet blood spurted out, and in the blink of an eye, the gilded hull was dyed red. Maybe death is also a relief. The man standing in the dark place slowly retracted the knife in his hand, his expression gloomy, and after speaking in a deep voice, he was once again hidden in the darkness. It's really boring. These lowly mortals, stupid pigs, actually want to disrespect the noble gods, damn it. The face full of fat trembled, and Roswalia said with disgust and disdain. Forget it, kill all the pariahs of this mortal kingdom. If you dare to disrespect the great god, you should all be damned. Roswali said casually. The man with a gloomy face hidden in the dark, his expression became even more ugly, glanced at the stupid pig sitting on the throne, and a wisp of killing intent permeated away. But soon, the killing intent was forcibly suppressed by him, he sighed helplessly, and issued an order to his subordinates. Shooting against the celestial dragons, trying to kill the celestial dragons, has indeed reached a certain condition. The corpse was quickly dragged down, the bloodline was quickly cleaned up, the new slave was brought up again, and Roswali was surrounded by the group of girls, showing a pervert smile again, and continued to appreciate the audience. Fight. As if nothing happened, as if slaughtering a country, as it should be. Report. A pirate ship is found ahead, it seems to be. It's the Moby Dick. 99. At this moment, a marine shouted in a panic, and shouted with fear and panic written all over his face. After hearing the Moby Dick, the expression of the man who was hidden in the dark was startled for a moment, and he appeared in front of the marine soldier in an instant. What did you say? Moby Dick. Visible tension and fear appeared on the faces of everyone present, even the ghost spider who was Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral was no exception. But there was only one person, and that was sitting on the throne, and the somewhat bored 973 Roswell Lishung suddenly sat up straight, with a look of excitement in his eyes. No. That's right, it's the Moby Dick, it's the Whitebeard Pirates. Marine soldiers have long been scared pale, who would have thought that they would meet the terrifying Whitebeard Pirates here. These guys, with their own power, destroyed the superpower Atom Kingdom madmen. What's the difference between meeting them and meeting Shinigami? Hearing the subordinate's definite answer, the ghost spider, who has always been calm and composed, instantly frowned, and the muscles and nerves all over his body tightened. No way, this group of lunatics from the Whitebeard Pirates is so terrifying and terrifying, even the name is terrifying. I can't think of resistance at all. Quick, turn the course and leave this area as soon as possible. At the same time, notify Naval Headquarters that the Whitebeard Pirates have been found. Rao was the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, who had experienced many battles. At this time, he was also completely nervous, and his forehead even oozes cold sweat. Yes. After hearing this, Marine Corps didn't dare to hesitate at all, and he was about to rush out of the main hall and give orders to flee for his life. Wait a moment, however. At this moment, above the main hall, Roswali opened his mouth to stop the ghost spider's order. Chapter 272, Humble Justice. Wait a moment. The disgusting voice of the guy on the throne spread throughout the hall, and everyone present was stunned. The expression of the ghost spider also became ugly in an instant, frowning slightly, and glanced back. Lord Roswali, the opponent is the Whitebeard Pirates, not someone you can play with. The ghost spider seemed to have a foreboding and warned with a gloomy expression. He. What about the Whitebeard Pirates? A group of mortal slaves, they dare to block my way, I want you to kill them all, slaughter them cleanly, and leave no one behind. Roswali's frantic and excited expression seemed to finally be able to let him pass this boring time. However, as soon as these words came out, all Marines, and those who had heard a little about the Whitebeard Pirates, the three demon brothers, were stunned and full of disbelief. The ghost spider is even more so, with that expression, as if looking at a hopelessly stupid pig. Lord Roswali, do you know what you are talking about? The ghost spider turned around and looked directly at Saint Roswell. Although the status gap between them was huge, the confidence brought by their strength was still enough to support the ghost spider to speak like this. After all, even celestial dragons can't do something to a marine vice admiral for no reason. What's more, this guy is planning to take the lives of everyone present as a joke. The ghost spider is already a little angry. This guy is so stupid. If it weren't for the fact that this guy's identity was really special, the ghost spider would want to chop this bastard into 8 pieces. Of course this saint knows what I'm talking about. Those guys are blocking my way. They are offending the dignity of celestial dragons. I want you to kill them. Is there a problem? Marine Vice Admiral Ghost Spider. Roswell's eyes narrowed slightly, full of threats, but the long nose hanging on his face was extremely disgusting and funny. A pair of big hands swam around the body of the Maid of Abundance beside her, unscrupulous. Listening to the words of Saint Roswali, the ghost spider was silent, his face was ugly, ultimate, his brows were furrowed, and the killing intent was uncontrollable. The Whitebeard Pirates are extremely powerful. We alone cannot be our opponents. It's too late to leave now, otherwise. Pipe. Just death. The ghost spider persuaded again, how stupid this guy is, and he actually wanted to provoke that group of devils. That is the guy who single-handedly destroyed the Super Kingdom. His strength is as terrifying as a ghost, and everyone can't avoid it. Is this guy really a pig brain? To actually want to rush up to find death is simply hopelessly stupid. With him and the 2 Vice Admiral and 5 Commodores under his command, it is impossible to be an opponent at all. If they fight the Whitebeard Pirates, they will die without knowing how. Feeling a bleak aura coming, Roswell Lishung immediately gave a chill, but his arrogance for a long time made him not know what danger is, let alone what death is. Instead, he was provoked and ruthless. Pushing aside the maid beside him, he glared angrily at the ghost spider and scolded him angrily. Bastard, Laozi is celestial dragons, they offend me, they have to die, kill them for me, or you will die for Laozi. Waste. Dead silence. The entire hall was dead silent, and everyone even forgot to breathe, watching this scene in horror. After a long time, the ghost spider finally sighed heavily, turned and walked outside the hall. The cloak of justice swayed in the wind, and at this moment, it seemed so dazzling. Deflect the course, immediately notify the headquarters, and ask for support. The ghost spider's anger and killing intent have also dissipated at this time, and some are only depressed. He was also very resentful in his heart, why they should obey the orders of these stupid pigs and scum unconditionally. But ghost spiders have no way to disobey orders. All he could do was to deflect the course a little to see if he could avoid the Whitebeard Pirates. After all, against the group of madmen and evil spirits, let alone him, even Marine Admiral was alone, and I am afraid it would be difficult to escape. Alas, begging not to be discovered by those demons. The ghost spider looked into the distance, and the muscles and nerves all over his body tightened between his brows. Seeing the ghost spider compromise and leave, Saint Roswally suddenly showed a smug smile, sat back on the throne, took the maid in his arms, glanced at the ghost spider's back with disdain, and said coldly. Waste thing, Marine is a bunch of guys who are greedy for life and fear of death, let's go back and execute this guy. After speaking casually, Saint Roswally began to continue enjoying himself, completely unaware that something terrible was about to happen. At this time, many people had gathered on the huge deck of the Moby Dick. Everyone heard that Marco became the fourth lucky person after Guillaume to receive Alan's power. Everyone showed an envious look, wanting to have a glimpse, to see how strong Marco, the lucky guy, will get with new power. Backquote. What a lucky bastard, Marco. Quinn shouted, staring at Marco with a look of envy and crying. Bastard, let's see what power you have. Teach also came out, and the expression wished to swallow Marco directly. Hee hee, you guys are envious, jealous, don't you? Wait, when you are as good as me, you can too. Marco was not angry at all, but said with a smug smile. Hearing this, everyone suddenly let out a contemptuous voice. Hey, that's Marine's ship. These guys are blind. Didn't you see this was the Whitebeard Pirates' ship? 35. Whitebeard looked at the black dots emerging from the sea in the distance and wondered. Hey, it just so happens that my hands are itchy recently and I want to kill someone. These idiots are here at the right time. Teach said with an excited look on his face. Wait a minute, Nuo Zhaohao, that's the ship of the celestial dragons. Careful Guillaume May's eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at the extravagant giant ship with a slightly startled voice. That's right, it should be those stupid pigs who claim to be gods, or why would Marine be willing to be a watchdog? 35. Abel said with a sarcastic grin on the corner of his mouth. Very good. No wonder these guys didn't run for their lives when they saw the flag of our Whitebeard Pirates, it turned out to be celestial dragons. It's arrogant enough. Hiyori held her cute face in her hands, leaned on the railing and looked into the distance, sneering. If you kill celestial dragons, something interesting will happen, right? Gia ha ha ha. Teach showed a big yellow tooth, and his face was full of excitement. It's not just celestial dragons that is boring in this endless sea. These diabolical guys have long been bored. Chapter 273, This is my prey. The tense and fearful atmosphere pervaded frantically, and there was silence on the three marine warships. After seeing the huge Moby Dick in the distance, all normal people with a little brain began to be enveloped in a great fear. The cloak with the two characters of justice was constantly swaying against the sea breeze. The ghost spider and the two vice admiral subordinates stood at the end of the deck, staring at the Moby Dick in the distance with extremely ugly faces, fists clenched, nerves tense, was extremely nervous. They had already deflected their course, praying constantly in their hearts, trying to slip past. Ghost Spider and others are very clear in their hearts, with their current lineup, against the main force of the Whitebeard Pirates, it is simply dead and dead. Not even a chance to resist. Gudong, with a dry throat, Colonel Commodore, who was standing behind the Ghost Spider, was swallowing saliva nervously. The hand holding the hilt of the knife even started to tremble uncontrollably. Don't find out. Don't be found out. Countless Marines are praying at the same time at this moment, but on the luxurious giant ship, clear laughter and frolic can still be heard. This joyous voice was particularly harsh at this time. Finally, they gradually sailed away from the Moby Dick, and everyone breathed a heavy sigh of relief. Many young Marine 973 slumped on the ground as soon as their legs went weak. Rao is a group of strong players behind the Ghost Spider. At this time, they all felt a burst of collapse, and their whole body was already soaked in cold sweat. Phew, maximum speed, quickly leave this sea area. Looking at the Moby Dick that didn't seem to find them, the Ghost Spider finally breathed a sigh of relief and ordered it immediately. Yes, his subordinate Marine did not dare to be slighted at all, and immediately took command, wishing to grow wings and fly away from here. Just when everyone breathed a sigh of relief and rejoiced for the rest of their lives after the disaster. Sudden, are you going to escape? With sarcasm, an incomparably cold voice suddenly came from behind, followed by an extremely terrifying sense of oppression. The expression of the Ghost Spider changed drastically in an instant, and he immediately held the knife in both hands, turned around to take a fighting stance, and stared at the height of the warship mast following the sound. I saw there, a man in a blue vest, looking down at them with a sneer and a smile. Marco. The Ghost Spider immediately recognized the person. No way, this is a character comparable to Admiral, how could he not recognize it? Don't you AGFJ really think that you can escape like this? Another cold female voice came from the side, and the ghost spider suddenly looked at it like a formidable enemy. I saw that on the other two warships, I don't know when, it was already full of guys from the Whitebeard Pirates. The person who spoke just now was Guion, the daughter of the demon Alan. And the rest are all elites of the Whitebeard Pirates, and they all came. What do you want to do? One of his subordinates, Commodore, had already lost his mind by the monstrous pressure and killing intent of Marco and the others, his trembling instinct retreated, and he asked with a terrified expression. Hearing this, Teach and the others immediately showed a sneer. What do you think we'll do? Looking at the grinning crowd, the Marines were like a group of turtles in a urn. They were all swallowed up by endless fear, and even the hand holding the weapon began to tremble uncontrollably. Marine, who was relatively close to Marco and the others, was even more frightened and slumped to the ground, not daring to move. Humph. Cheer me up, we're Marines. Seeing this, the ghost spider snorted coldly, and a mighty force suddenly burst out, sweeping away, forcibly awakening the people who had fallen into fear. And so far, some people who have completely lost their ability to fight have forcibly gathered up their courage and clenched the weapons in their hands. Hee. What about Marine, not yet Celestial Dragon's dog? Hiyori also came to join in the fun, lying on Guion's shoulder, and said disdainfully. Hearing this, Ghost Spider and the others suddenly looked even more ugly, looking towards the direction of the Great Wheel Hall, where there was still the sound of enjoyment. This guy is really hopelessly stupid. Death is imminent without knowing it. If it wasn't for this idiot seeking death, they would have escaped long ago. How could you be in such a situation? There is great resentment in my heart, but it is too late to regret it. Ghost Spider frowned, clenched his hand holding the knife, and said solemnly, Hold on, Garp Vice Admiral and the others will come to support soon. As long as those three guys don't shoot, we still have a chance. The ghost spider forcibly suppressed his unease and said in a deep voice. No way, he must appease the fears in the hearts of everyone, otherwise he will die faster. Indeed, the moment they received their request for support when they encountered the Whitebeard Pirates, Naval Headquarters immediately sent Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr to support them. But, can they hold out until support arrives? Okay, don't talk nonsense, kill them quickly, and when the old guys come, it will be a little troublesome. Bullet said solemnly. That's right, Marco, let's see how strong your new power is. Abel also urged. Listening to the casual conversation of several people, the expression of the ghost spider became more and more ugly. New power. Could it be? Has this guy become stronger again? An uneasy feeling surged in my heart, and everyone's eyes converged on Marco. It's just that Marine's face was full of fear, while Guion and the others looked like they were tricked prey, with a playful look on their faces. Bastards, you pirates, don't underestimate Marine. The ghost spider was irritated by the attitude of the crowd. Although he knew he was defeated, he still shouted angrily and exhaled a scorching breath. The cloak of justice behind him was hunting, and 8 dark arms suddenly protruded. 8 arms held the 8 knives, the cold light was piercing, and a ferocious and terrifying aura like a beast suddenly burst out from his body. The powerful aura actually caused the waves to shake the surrounding sea, and the huge warships began to shake uneasily. Visible. As the ghost spider of Vice Admiral, he has extremely good strength. The surrounding Marine felt the terrifying power that erupted from the ghost spider Vice Admiral, and most of the fear in his heart instantly dissipated. Hoo. 35. The powerful aura of the ghost spider stirred the situation, and a gust of wind suddenly erupted on the deck. However, even so, the expressions of Marco and the others did not change in the slightest, and they were still full of disdain and ridicule. Those eyes were like looking at a lamb to be slaughtered, struggling to the death. Gia ha. It seems a little interesting, Marco, if you don't do it again, I will do it. Blackbeard's face showed pervert's excitement, and he was about to shoot with a grin. But in the next second, a light and shadow flickered and appeared directly on the deck in the field. The wind suddenly rose. Marco stood calmly in front of the ghost spider, glanced at Teach, and said coldly. How dare you? This is my prey. Chapter 274. That's right, it's torture. On the deck of the Marine warship, the surging and terrifying momentum collided with each other. The waves were turbulent, and the huge warship swayed like a leaf-shaped boat. The unmistakable Hockey's voice echoed, even if it was as strong as Blackbeard Teach, he was suddenly startled, looking at Marco with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Does this bastard dare to speak to himself so arrogantly just after gaining new powers? Displeased in his heart, the corners of his mouth trembled slightly, and a dark killing intent flashed in his eyes, but it quickly dissipated, and Teach's just raised arm fell. Gia ha. Having a new power is arrogance, Marco. Then let me see if you have such arrogant capital now. 5. Obviously, the second half of Teach's words was not finished. All the smart people present saw the subtle smell of gunpowder between Marco and Teach. Interesting, maybe we can see the battle between Teach and Marco today, it should be very interesting. Abel said with an expectant smile. Come on, just rely on Teach's bully and fear the tough guy, and when you see Marco's new power, it will be strange to do it. 35. Guillaume glanced at her mouth with disdain. That's right, the power given by my father is definitely outrageous, and this guy Teach will definitely be scared away. The lovely Yamato sat next to Guillaume, shaking his slender and fair legs, and echoed proudly. Blackbeard heard clearly, the corners of his mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. Indeed, none of the power bestowed by the uncle is a pervert of heaven defying. Marco's original strength is only a little weaker than himself, and now I'm afraid it can't be underestimated. Listening to the leisurely conversation of several people, the Marines at this time were sitting on pins and needles, suffering extremely. Especially the sound of pleasure from that bastard pig on the giant ship was heard from time to time, making everyone's faces even more ugly, their eyes resentful, and they even wanted to rush in now and rub the stupid pig on the ground. The ghost spider did not interrupt the conversation of several people, and he wished these guys would delay for a while. But fortunately, it seems that the current situation, they do not seem to plan to shoot together. This is great news for them. If these monsters attacked together, they would probably be destroyed if they couldn't hold on for a few seconds, not to mention waiting for the support of Admiral from the headquarters. Totally nonsense. Okay, Marco, don't linger, those old guys at Naval Headquarters aren't just needing persimmons. Whitebeard urged. Now that they are at the cusp of the storm, the power of the 40-nation alliance should not be underestimated. Marco naturally knew the current situation, even when he nodded, his eyes fell on the ghost spider, and he looked at the 6 arms sticking out from behind the ghost spider, showing a touch of surprise. 8 knife flow. With a lazy smile on his face, it was obvious that Marco didn't take this Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral seriously at all and was extremely confident. You're not bad, sign up. Marco saw that the other party was full of energy, and in this situation, he still did not lose his fighting spirit, and his blood was full, and he also showed a touch of admiration. After all, look at the other people except this guy, all of them are afraid, and they can't even hold the knife. The ghost spider's muscles were tense, staring at Marco in front of him, and the face with the staggered scars also revealed absolute viciousness. Obviously, this guy isn't a good guy either. After countless fights, the pirates that fell into his hands, even if they didn't die, they had to lose their skins. It is precisely because of these life and death experiences that he still remains calm and calm. Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, Ghost Spider. Without the slightest emotional fluctuation, the ghost spider swung his arm, and the saber in his hand immediately made a piercing sound of breaking through the air. The blade was piercing, and the hard deck was instantly torn apart by a dark knife mark, calling out his name. Interesting, use your best, don't let me be too disappointed. There was a lazy smile on the corner of Marco's mouth, his half-squinted eyes seemed to have never woken up, and he glanced at the ghost spider, without even showing a fighting stance. Seeing that Marco despised himself so arrogantly, the ghost spider's brows suddenly became more and more wrinkled, his expression condensed, and his fierce color was full. Arrogant bastard, don't look down on Marine. An angry shout. Boom. 0. Ask for flowers. A deep pit exploded on the deck underfoot, followed by the sound of the air booming, and a figure shot out like an arrow, and a gust of wind swept all directions. The ghost spider held 8 knives in his hand, and his oar like a giant beast burst out at this moment. Wow. The sea water on both sides of the warship was also repelled by this air wave, swaying toward both sides. The ghost spider knows the strength of the opponent, and does not dare to hold back or careless at all. The wind whistled, and the situation changed in an instant. The black clouds rolled and the waves were turbulent. With the ghost spider's full strength shot, the momentum was so terrifying. Ghost Spider Vice Admiral. A Marine behind him looked at the ghost spider and shouted out immediately, and his fear was finally dispelled at this moment. However, Teach and the others watched the ghost spider take action, but their expressions did not change at all, they were still disdainful, and they didn't even look at the ghost spider from beginning to end, but stared at the motionless Marco. Ghost spiders are really good, but they are still too weak for them, and anyone can easily kill them. That's right, it's torture. The ghost spider's eyes burst with brilliance, and it ran like a mad dragon. In an instant, it rushed in front of Marco, and suddenly stepped on the deck, and forcibly stopped the body that was rushing forward. Boom. 39. The deck under the ghost spider's feet burst and collapsed in an instant, and a thick crack like a spider web suddenly spread, and a huge pit 2 meters long was stepped on. These knife lights were actually intertwined with a huge 8-legged spider in the air, clawing its teeth and claws, and slaughtered towards Marco, corpse. However, what is even scarier is laugh. The sound of the sword vibrated, and the fierce sword light slashed out, and the 8 knives slashed together, only rushing towards Marco. Marco's slightly squinted eyes suddenly flashed a look of surprise, and his lazy expression finally revealed a serious look. Because in front of him, the light of the sword suddenly overwhelmed the sky, and the ghost spider wielded 8 swords at this time, and the light of the sword responded to all directions, and every sword light made people tremble. Quote. Yup. The 8 mad knives burst into the air in unison, and the sharp and piercing voices gathered together, and everyone heard a roar like a beast and a spider. Chapter 275, Beheaded. Marco was killed. Chi. The ghost spider came in a burst, wielding 8 knives, and the knife beams were intertwined with incomparable brutality and terror. Interesting. Marco's half-closed eyes flashed a gleam of light, and a charming smile appeared on his face, but he still did not move at all in the face of the terrifying offensive. Not yet. Are you courting death? When the ghost spider saw that he had burst out with all his strength, this guy was still so arrogant, and immediately burned with anger, and the power above his 8 arms burst out again. Buzz. The dark armament hockey suddenly poured out, covering the 8 knives together. Every Marine is very familiar with the Whitebeard Pirates. As a naval headquarters winner, he has studied everyone in the Whitebeard Pirates. He naturally knows the ability of this guy in front of him. Bird fruit, Eudemons, Immortal, 973, bird form. It is a zone mythical beast fruit ability that is rarer than Logia, and has a rare flying ability. But, this self-healing power has its limits. Hey! The phantom of the spider intertwined by the terrifying sword light emitted a roar. Under the blessing of armament hockey, the ghost spider at this time was actually terrifying like a ghost, exuding a sense of oppression like a demon. As soon as he stepped on the ground, the strength of the whole body concentrated, twisted the waist to exert force, the 8 arms shook in unison, and the time was cut horizontally. Because he knew that the guy in front of him had the ability to fly, these 8 knives also blocked the space where Marco could fly in midair without reservation. The black hockey surged, and the stern sword light captured the soul, like a crescent moon, containing endless murderous intent, and slashed out in anger. This hit. It is the strongest blow of the ghost spider. Without the slightest reservation, he understands the gap between himself and the group of monsters in front of him. If he wants to have a chance of survival, he must go all out without reservation. Once there is the slightest slack in holding his hands, what greets him is an instant kill. Forever. This guy. Quinn showed a shocked expression. This guy's strength is extremely good. Even if he is on the match, I am afraid it can only be reluctantly suppressed. Looking at the ghost spider's knife, Rao Abel and the others couldn't help showing a look of surprise. No one expected that a naval headquarters vice admiral in this district would have such courage and strength. The power that erupted at this moment, even they did not dare to be too careless. I don't even dare to use the body to make a hard connection. It must be possible to use the ability or hockey, otherwise it will definitely be severely injured. Of course, in a real life and death fight, apart from the weaker Quinn and others, for Marco and them, this guy can only resist 1 or 2 moves at most. This is his limit, but it was clear that the full outburst of the ghost spider finally caught everyone's interest. But still no one thinks that this guy is Marco's opponent. However, the next second, when everyone saw Marco who was still motionless, and even hockey and his fruit abilities were not activated at all, they were all shocked. What is this guy doing? Bastard. Is this guy courting death? Even if you look down on the opponent, an attack of this level should at least use the fruit power or hockey, right? Abel and the others frowned slightly, their faces full of surprise, staring at Marco, their eyes full of puzzlement and shock. Gia ha ha ha, Marco, did you expect that you, who has always been steady, would have such a careless day? Blackbeard grinned immediately. He is not only worried about whether this guy will be injured, it is best to be directly hacked to death, but it is obvious that this is absolutely impossible. But just being mauled by a Marine Vice Admiral was enough to make Marco lose his prestige in the Whitebeard Pirates. Will be a laughing stock. Brother Marco, what are you doing? Although Guillaume believed in Marco's strength, there was a hint of doubt on her pretty face at this time, and her brows were wrinkled with worry. The blade wind swept through, and the mad blade wrapped in armament hockey attacked his face. At this moment, even if everyone wanted to stop it, it was too late. Everyone forgot to breathe, and even their hearts were exposed, staring at the two of them nervously. The lieutenants behind the ghost spider, watching the ghost spider about to succeed at this time, their expressions changed, and there was a feeling of dreaming. The result is the Whitebeard Pirates Marco. The big pirate with a bounty of over 1 billion. What a terrifying achievement this must be. Is the achievement going to happen in front of their eyes? Nervousness. Ecstasy. The illusion of escaping birth fills all Marines' mind for a while. Boom. Thunder-like slashes cut through the sky, slashing out 0. And the next second, all the Marines imagined it in their minds, and they couldn't believe that the scene actually happened. PFF'd. Muscles were torn, bones were chopped off, and the sound of nerves snapping suddenly came out. Although the sound was not loud, it seemed to explode in everyone's mind. The ghost spider fell, and the world seemed to have pressed the stop button at this moment. Everything came to a standstill. The sea breeze blows, the air is still, and everyone's eyes widen. Next up, everyone was horrified to see Marco. One of the best in the Whitebeard pirate group, the big pirate with a bounty of over 1 billion, was cut into a dozen pieces by the ghost spider. The head was directly cut into 4 sections. Silence. A deadly silence pervades. Unbelievable horror filled everyone's heart. Those Marines, after a short period of sluggishness, their heads were filled with ecstasy as if they had exploded in an instant. Win. I don't know how long it took, but time seemed to stand still at this moment. A Marine looked at the scene in horror like waking up from a dream, and murmured. At this time, even Teach Quinn and the others widened their eyes and suddenly sat up straight. 5.9 inches. Is this the end? He didn't speak. Abel didn't speak either. Guillaume fell silent. Yamato's shaking legs froze in the air for a moment. As a Marine cheered, Marine, who had been in endless fear before, suddenly boiled. Even though Marco's body was dead and could no longer die, no one moved, only the atmosphere became deadly depressing. On the other hand, everyone in the Whitebeard Pirates fell into a dead silence, as if they were waiting for something. The battle that everyone imagined to be resolved quickly did end with lightning speed, but the result is really different. Dead. Dead. At this moment, the situation turned around in an instant. Enel floated in midair, sitting cross-legged on his knees, his right hand propped his head, his eyes lowered, and he looked at this scene with a gloomy expression. Chapter 276, Instant Healing. The power of the terrifying horse spell. Ghost Spider Vice Admiral. Lord Vice Admiral. God. The Ghost Spider Vice Admiral killed Marco with one stroke. The Ghost Spider Vice Admiral is amazing. The Marines started cheering and shouting wildly for the Ghost Spider's 8 knife-like slash. Although the discerning person knows that under the circumstance that the Whitebeard Pirates are surrounded by, they are still alive and difficult to escape, but because of the Ghost Spider's knife, at least their desperate hearts regenerated Hanabi. From the previous 10 deaths and no life, the hope of life was cut out abruptly. This little guy is really a rare evil. At this time, on the Moby Dick in the distance, Alan was leaning on the throne, nibbling on a huge barbecue, and Observation Hockey was watching everything. Watching Marco get chopped into a pile, Alan not only didn't get the slightest annoyance, but instead showed an elusive smile. On the Marine warship at this time, the crowd of the Whitebeard Pirates formed a sharp contrast with the cheers of the Marines 06, and they all fell into a dead silence. Except for Teach, the rest of the people's faces were either unchanged, indifferent and terrifying, or they were already filled with strong murderous intent. It is worth mentioning that, although it is clear that Marco has indeed been cut into dozens of ghost spiders with one knife, there is no surprise on his face. The ghost spider slashed down with a knife, and the whole body still maintained the posture of swinging the knife. The bulging muscles and chest began to contract and rise regularly. This blow took a lot of physical strength. But I don't know why, there is always an inexplicable sense of disobedience. His brows were furrowed, and he turned back and stared at the pile of corpses that were already terrible. Sudden. The ghost spider seemed to have realized something, and his expression suddenly changed drastically, as if he had thought of something extremely terrifying, causing an unbelievable look of fear to appear on his incomparably vicious face. Wrong. No. 55. This guy is wrong. Why is there no blood? The ghost spider was suddenly surprised, and the cold sweat flowed from the shock of his heart, and he let out a low voice. At the same time, Whiteby and others also found clues. This guy, although there were vague guesses, he still stared at Marco, who had turned into a pile of minced meat, in disbelief, looking forward to the next scene. But he finally breathed a sigh of relief. If this guy is really killed like this, even the Whitebeard Pirates will become a laughing stock. Prestige will plummet in an instant. But fortunately, this is simply impossible. No one spoke, and the people of the Whitebeard Pirates watched silently, as if the guy who was chopped into a pile of minced meat had nothing to do with them, and waited without any movement. The ghost spider froze in place. Although he made a great contribution just now, he still couldn't relax, and his whole body was already soaked in cold sweat. This is battle-hardened combat intuition. Intuition told him that something terrible would happen next. And it turns out that his intuition was right. Just when the Marines were still immersed in the might of their own Vice Admiral's sword and couldn't extricate themselves, something that shocked everyone's perception happened. I saw that the places that were cut open were actually shining white light. This burst of white light, as if possessing endless healing power, was actually pulling the pieces of meat to begin to regroup. Soon, Marco, who turned into a pile of minced meat on the deck, was stitched up again and stood up again. What power is this? 39. The ghost spider looked at the terrifying scene in front of him, and his brain even went down in an instant. Hearing the exclamations of the ghost spiders, the Marines who were still cheering, saw this incredible and terrifying scene. Ghost. Hell. God. What did I see? 35. The corpse is moving. Am I having a nightmare? What the hell are my eyes looking at? Many Marines fell to the ground in fright. The scene in front of him is beyond common sense, it is so frightening and terrifying that it is difficult to understand. Under the traction of the sparkling white light, the pieces of minced meat seemed to be attracted to each other and rejoined together. When facing Marco's head and pressing it on his neck again, a horrifying voice suddenly came out. You bastard. You are really ruthless, Marco said coldly with a sullen face twitching on his face. Although he has experienced countless life and death battles and suffered a lot of injuries, it is the first time that he has been cut into dozens of pieces. Who the hell knew it would hurt so much? Pain. It's so painful. He definitely didn't want to experience this feeling a second time. However, in the next second, the grimness on Marco's face was replaced by joy. That power. The strange power that was constantly pouring out of the body was simply amazing. Ghost spider. Right, its strength is good, but it's a pity. Marco's head turned back slowly, and his eyes shot out a bright light, and the cracks on his body disappeared in an instant as the voice fell. That's right. The dozen or so stab wounds traversing the body were healed almost in an instant and disappeared without a trace, as if nothing had happened. Dead silence. The wind was blowing and the waves were surging. At this moment, the entire warship fell into a dead silence again. Everyone's eyes couldn't wait to stare out of their sockets, looking at the incredible scene of 977 in front of them in disbelief. It's so outrageous. How could someone have such a heaven-defying ability, even being chopped into dozens of pieces and healed instantly? What kind of terrifying power is this? Are all the Whitebeard Pirates monsters? Neither are humans. When did this guy become so nasty? Abel scolded with a smile, but he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Is this the power bestowed by the uncle? It's really strong enough to pervert. Whitebeard looked at the intact Marco in shock and narrowed his eyes slightly. The ability to heal instantly. Or, Enel's half-closed eyes, which had been listless from beginning to end, were also rarely opened at this time, staring at Marco. This bastard. Such power. Teach clenched his teeth and clenched his fists, looking at Marco's expression full of resentment and jealousy, wishing to rush up to take this power away immediately. Wow. The power that my father gave to big brother Marco is so pervert. Hiyori shook her slender legs again, and a look of envy appeared on her lovely face, and said with a smile. It is indeed powerful. This terrifying healing power, coupled with the green flame of the phoenix fruit itself, almost no one can kill Marco. After Guillaume finished speaking, he paused and pondered for a moment, and then added again. Even Admiral. Chapter 277, Xingyan Phoenix Seal. This is the power that Uncle gave me. Marco enjoyed the feeling of ants crawling all over his body, which made him feel extremely happy and comfortable. This healing power is much stronger than his own green flames. Although the power of his phoenix fruit is also a healing power, it is like some kind of medicine, slow and has an upper limit. The power that Alan gave himself was completely different. It's just like a miracle that does not belong to this world, it is completely above the rules. With a divine power that cannot be understood by common sense, it forces instant healing as before. Compared to healing, this moment was more like forcing him to return to the state where his body was intact, as if going back in time. And he can feel that as he gradually controls this power, even the pain of being dismembered can be eliminated. What's even more terrifying is that under the control of his instinctive consciousness, the torn clothes on his body were healed in an instant, and they were intact. Is it even an item? Marco watched in amazement as the things on his body returned to normal, and his heart became more and more ecstatic. As expected of the power bestowed by the uncle. It's simply too strong. Marco's expression was gradually replaced by ecstasy, and he, who had always been steady, became extremely excited, like a child who had just learned to walk. That frenzied joy made Alan in the distance couldn't help but shake his head. These guys, as expected, they're all just little brats. Without paying any more attention, taking back what he had seen, the next thing was no longer interesting to Alan. What kind of power is this? The ghost spider pressed the horror and fear in his heart and asked in shock. At this moment, he has understood that he is absolutely impossible to be the opponent of this group of monsters. Everything before is an illusion. This kind of power can no longer be understood by normal logic. How to fight this? The corpse can be broken into a pile of minced meat and it can be healed as before, unscathed. How the F***K is this beaten? His full blow, the strongest blow, didn't even chop off a single hair of Marco's hair, and even his clothes didn't break in the slightest. There is absolutely no way to win. This is not a fair fight at all. From the beginning, he had only one way to be slaughtered. The only thing he can do now is to pray for the support of the headquarters admiral to arrive soon. As this power, it was given by my uncle, do you want it too? There was a playful sneer at the corner of Marco's mouth, looked at the ghost spider, and asked jokingly. The ghost spider was stunned, his mind thought fast, and his reason was severely impacted again. Give. The power that the devil Alan bestowed. He can't figure it out. Can't figure out that this kind of terrifying power that is enough to drive countless people crazy, was actually bestowed by that devil. How scary is that guy? Even this kind of heaven-defying ability is casually bestowed on his subordinates. At this moment, the ghost spider, who had never been timid, suddenly felt a sense of powerlessness, and even made him lose his will to fight. Marco, end the fight. At this time, Enel, who had never spoken, looked at Marco with deep eyes and said. Marco glanced at Enel and understood, he knew that Marine's support was about to arrive. He didn't continue to tease the ghost spider, a wicked smile appeared on his face, and the fantastic wings behind him suddenly unfolded, and a hurricane swept out in an instant. Okay. Now, it's my turn. As soon as Marco said a word, a terrifying aura erupted in an instant, and the whole person flew out in an instant, like a hunting eagle, kicking straight at the ghost spider. The terrifying aura in the field filled the air, and the phantom-colored undead bird's wings spread out, but it was wrapped in a violent force like thunder, like Wang Yang's sea of fire surging. Crane claw. Marco directly transformed into a human beast form, and his feet had turned into two huge claws at some point, and he rushed out. The ghost spider's eyes instantly became solemn, and the ferocious facial features showed fear at this time. The battle hardened him actually didn't know how to defeat the opponent in front of him at this time. In the face of that incredible force, there is no hope of finding any vitality at all, only the share of beatings. Chong. 99. The ghost spider wielded 8 knives and forcibly resisted Marco's attack. After all, he was a ghost spider. Although he knew that he could not win, he still did not give up. The support of the headquarters was coming soon. Just hold on. Just hold on for a while. Forced to strengthen the belief in the heart, the ghost spider rekindled the fighting spirit, no longer thought about it, and was not afraid, but chose to fight. What if you don't die in an endless battle? As long as he can't be killed, he will never give in front of pirates. The expression became extremely ferocious again, and the 8 knives were swung wildly, and the ghost spider had already seen it. Although Marco's ability was outrageous, his attack power was not particularly strong. As long as the other members of the Whitebeard Pirates don't take action and hold on for a while, they should be able to do it. When the headquarters admiral arrives, everything will be solved. Boom. On the deck, terrifying air waves continued to swept out, and every time the collision between the 8 knives and the crane claw set off a gust of wind and swept out. From a distance, it really looks like an ancient giant bird fighting a giant spider again. Marco's speed was extremely fast, his wings spread out, turning into a phantom like a thunderbolt, attacking frantically. The ghost spider's response was not slow, and the 8 swords were stern. Although they were being pressed and beaten, they barely resisted Marco's attack. For a time on the entire deck, swords, lights, swords, green flames burned, and clanging sounds could be heard, which was extremely terrifying. The ghost spider was extremely powerful. It seemed that it had been pressed out of anger, and suddenly seized the opportunity. It jumped into the sky, and the light of the knife shone on the heaven and the earth in an instant, and 8 stabs slammed into Marco. At this moment, the light of the sword is terrifying, extremely fast. Nuo Jiao Jiao, it is so fast that it is impossible to capture it with the naked eye, and it is impossible to look down on the trajectory at all, like a thunderbolt passing by, no less than the previous knife. Laugh. A low, chilling whisper followed from Marco's mouth like a life-threatening voice. This flaw was deliberately sold to him by Marco, to deliberately lure him into taking the bait. Crap. I saw Marco's body that was cut in half healed again in an instant, followed by a burst of turquoise flames all over his body, and an extremely terrifying power suddenly condensed and burst out. Under the full swing of the slash just now, the ghost spider was too late to defend. With a low exclamation, he was about to take a defensive stance in a hurry, but it was too late. However, the ghost spider, who clearly succeeded in one blow, suddenly changed his expression and his heart sank. Blue Flame Phoenix Seal. Marco was cut in half again, and he didn't seem to have any intention of avoiding it. Chapter 278. The only thing that greets him is death. Dark clouds shrouded what should have been a clear sky, but at this time it had already become dark and terrifying because of the aura of the two. But at this time, as Marco shouted angrily, under the cloud, a dazzling brilliance suddenly erupted. The cyan fireworks burned wildly, shining like a phoenix in midair, and the dazzling brilliance shone in all directions, setting off the entire sky and earth in cyan. Marco stood in the sky. At this time he was completely orcish, the gorgeous wings behind him stretched out to be more than 2 meters long, and the terrifying blue flames rose up, as if to burn the air. But in fact, Marco's blue flame does not have the ability to burn, this is just an illusion. But even so, it was still scary. The ghost spider's pupils stared at the figure in midair. The terrifying power actually made him feel instinctive fear. The pores all over his body were quietly tightening, and the arm holding the 8 knives was also slowly tightening. Stretch up. The dark armament hockey covered 8 knives, and the strength of the whole body began to condense frantically. Even if you know that Marco's next move may be difficult to resist, but there is still a chance to fight. If you give up directly, then only death will greet him. The cyan fireworks continuously condensed out of the body, and finally poured into the hands continuously, and in the palms, a cyan seal gradually emerged at this time. An extremely terrifying wave 977 spread out. Boom. Suddenly, the blue light burst out completely. At this time, Marco's palms seemed to hold a green sun. The terrifying fluctuations made everyone present feel shocked. This blow is your reward for dismembering me. Marco's face became extremely eerie and terrifying against the backdrop of the blue flames, and he sneered like a ghost who crawled out of hell. Boom. The legs suddenly stepped on the void, the wings behind the back suddenly flapped, and the air instantly made an overwhelmed explosion. The entire space seemed to tremble violently at this moment, and the sea was instantly lifted by huge waves of dozens of meters. Die. Marco shouted angrily, and appeared directly above the ghost spider's head in the next second, holding the round of blue sun in his right palm. His expression instantly became vicious, and he slammed into the ghost spider on the deck. Wow. 9. The green seal smashed down, and instantly rose against the storm. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a phoenix with cyan fireworks all over its body, roaring, and slaying the ghost spider. Shish. The ghost spider didn't dare to be slighted at all. The muscles that had been tensed for a long time exploded with all the strength of the whole body, swung 8 knives, ripped apart the air in an instant, and slashed towards the blue phoenix. Bang. 99. The phoenix seal glowing with thick blue flames fiercely collided with the 8 mad knives of the ghost spider. Facing the boom. Wow. The violent air waves swept out madly with the two at the center, as if the whole sea was shaking frantically at this time. The sea surface was choppy, and the hard deck was instantly bursting, inch by inch. Several ships are also swaying wildly at this moment, as if they will be swallowed up by this huge wave at any time. And at this moment, all the powerhouses who can open their eyes are all staring at the place where the blue seal and the mad sword collided. Crack. Xingyan collided with Mad Saber, and Xingyan suddenly froze. Then suddenly, a small but incomparably crisp shattering sound came out, and immediately after that, everyone's pupils shrank slowly and suddenly at this moment, because the 8 mad knives of the ghost spider were using a kind of naked eye. Visible velocity shattering. The fine cracks quickly appeared on the 8 mad knives, and they spread all over the body in the blink of an eye. Boom. 99. There was no accident at all. As the crack spread, the next second, the mad knife that made the ghost spider famous in the sea, followed him to kill many pirate enemies, and finally shattered completely. The ghost spider watched as his weapon was smashed by Marco, the horror in his eyes could no longer be suppressed, and even the vicious face was covered with horror at this moment. Boom. The ghost spider was directly smashed into the deck, and the ground AGFJ surface, which was hard enough to withstand the bombardment of several artillery shells, was directly smashed into a huge deep pit, and even the sea water was poured in. The terrifying power, even if it has resisted 70% to 80%, still shocked the ghost spider with a big mouthful of blood, and even only 3 of the 8 arms were beaten at this time, and it was extremely embarrassing. Marco looked at the dark, deep hole on the deck without any movement, and did not continue to pursue. He just flipped his palm, and the blue flame in his hand dissipated, and the terrifying fluctuations around him gradually dissipated. But at this moment, the surroundings have already become silent. One after another, astonished eyes stared at the figure in the air as if looking at a devil. These Marines obviously never imagined that the ghost spider vice admiral, who could cut Marco into dozens of pieces with one knife, would be so vulnerable. I originally thought that the ghost spider vice admiral would be able to withstand at least a while, but whoever thought of it, it was instantly killed. How is it possible? Ghost spider vice admiral was killed. Could it be that this guy was on purpose? A terrifying guess popped up in Marine's heart, which made everyone look at Marco with even more horror, as if they were not looking at a person, but a devil. Intentionally letting people cut themselves into dozens of pieces, this is extremely crazy. Who else can do it except the Whitebeard Pirates? Call. Fortunately, this guy's offensive ability has not been enhanced. Teach finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw Marcos blow just now. This level of attack, although it is already strong, is not much stronger than before Marco. It seemed that the power bestowed upon him by the uncle was only the terrifying healing power. Having said that, Teach looked at Marco with a serious fear. Even if the combat power is not enhanced, the healing power of this pervert alone has made Marco invincible. As the strongest ghost spider in Marine was defeated by Marco and drowned in the depths of the sea, the result of the remaining Marines was self-evident. A killing feast is about to unfold. And just when Teach was preparing to vent these unlucky bastards, an angry shout with extreme dissatisfaction was uploaded from the giant ship dozens of meters away. Hey, what are you bastards doing? Why are you so noisy? And let me not let you. Having said that, Roswalis, who rushed out, finally realized the abnormality of the atmosphere. The face of the snot-dangling pig gradually filled with confusion and a trace of fear, staring blankly at the marine warship that was sinking in front of him. Chapter 279. Are you threatening me? The waves are surging and the sea water is pouring back. The marine warship that was blasted with a big hole by Marco gradually sank. Some Marines on it fell into the sea and struggled, while others fled to the warship next to them in fear. And Marco and others did not stop. Compared with these guys, what they are more interested in now is this stupid pig who dared to yell at them. Watching the marine warship escorting him sink, Roswalis was stunned for a moment, but then he returned to his original appearance. Bulls of idiots, what have you done? Know who I am. I am the great celestial dragons, your god. The ugly-looking, snot-noting Roswalis shouted. He didn't even need to look and think about who was standing below, because no matter who it was, no one in this world could offend them celestial dragons. Celestial dragons is the supreme being. Those who dare to offend them have only one way to die. But unfortunately, this time, he met a group of people he should not provoke. The eyes of Marco and the others gathered in the past, and this lack of emotion alone made the arrogant Roswali fall into an ice cave. An ominous foreboding rushed into his heart, panicked in his heart, and the instinct of fear appeared on his body unprecedentedly. Damn pariahs, what do you want to do? Bastards. A bunch of idiots, are you all pigs? Kill them for me, kill these untouchables. Where's the ghost spiders? Call the ghost spiders out and chop them all up and feed my dog. Poor Roswell Lishung didn't realize the seriousness of the matter at all, and was as arrogant as ever, screaming wildly. At this time, what he didn't notice was that all the pirates, even Marine, looked at him like they were looking at an idiot. The eyes of some Marines are full of anger and killing intent. If it wasn't for this idiot who insisted on provoking this group of monsters, and they returned early, perhaps they would never have encountered these guys at all, the Ghost Spider Vice Admiral would not have been killed, and they would not have ended up like this. As this the so-called world noble. Celestial dragons. Everyone jokingly looked at the clown-like guy in front of them, and couldn't help laughing out loud. Celestial dragons, 800 years ago, as the descendants of the Creator Kings, dominated the world government, possessed absolute privileges, and even claimed to be descendants of the Creator. These guys consider themselves extremely noble, live in the holy land of Mariajoy, and even disdain to breathe the same air as mortals, and put on bubble hoods for themselves, so they are easily recognizable. No wonder the world is ruled by these pig-like garbage. Abel showed a look of contempt and said coldly, "This guy looks so ugly. So disgusting." It was also the first time that Hiyori showed a disgusted expression. Xiaomei frowned. Obviously this guy's wretched appearance was disgusting to her. Don't these pigs live in the holy land Mariajoy? How did they get here? Did they come to die? Quinn said with a wicked smile. He couldn't wait to step on this guy who claimed to be a god and rub it under his feet. Is this the celestial dragons? Unexpectedly weak. What a disappointment. Enel raised his eyes and glanced at Roswali, when he lost interest. This guy is too weak, even worse than a domestic pig. Let him kill a dirty stupid pig, no. He'll be sick for a long time. With a flash of electric light, Enel disappeared directly in place, having seen the new power bestowed by his uncle to Marco, and he was no longer interested in the rest, so he simply returned to the ship. Stupid pig, are you courting death? Suddenly, there was a voice with a low voice like a ghost in the ear of the clamoring Roswalis. Teach disappeared in place without knowing when, and appeared behind Roswali like a ghost. Roswal Lisheng was instantly stiff, and the whole person seemed to be frozen in an instant, and he didn't even dare to move, and his whole body was instantly soaked in cold sweat. This is a real killing intent, which he cannot bear at all. And as the ghost spider died in battle, no one was able to protect him anymore. Teach didn't shoot directly, but jokingly looked at the stupid pig in front of him. He really couldn't understand how such a guy ruled the world. I don't even understand why the pedantic old guys from the world government should be the lackeys of these stupid pigs. PFF'd. Ask for flowers. As Teach restrained the momentum, a yellow liquid flowed directly from the crotch of Roswali, accompanied by a stench, and then fell directly to the ground, as if he was drained of his strength in an instant. The dignified celestial dragons, the self-proclaimed existence of gods, was actually scared to the point of incontinence. This scene instantly made Gion and Hiyori's brows furrowed even more, with a look of disgust on their faces. Let's go. Gion got up, took Yamato, took a vertical leap, and returned directly to the Moby Dick. This guy is really disgusting. Who are you? I'm Celestial Dragons, Roswal, how dare you kill me? Saint Roswali sat paralyzed in his own excrement and urine, trembling all over, but still screaming. He did not believe, and had never seen, that someone would dare to disrespect them Celestial Dragons, let alone kill them Celestial Dragons. No one in this world dares to do this. Gia ha ha ha, you stupid pig, what are you shouting when you are about to die? If you kill you, what will you do to Laozi? Teach sneered jokingly, then leaned out and directly grabbed the glass cover on Roswal's head and slowly lifted it into the air. No, you can't. I'm Celestial Dragons. If you kill me, Marine will not let you go. The Admiral of Headquarters will personally take action and destroy you all. If you don't leave one, you will all be killed. 5. Roswalis struggled wildly, and the fear he had never experienced reached its peak at this moment. But he couldn't do anything. In front of Teach, who had the strength of Commodore, he had no chance of resisting at all. Teach crushed him as easily as stepping on an ant. Oh, Admiral of Headquarters. Gia ha ha ha, so are you threatening Laozi? Teach grinned, the smile on his face became more and more hideous, and the palm of his hand slowly exerted force. Crunch. Roswal Lisheng could clearly hear that the bubble on his head was enveloped in the palm of the monster in front of him, and began to shatter overwhelmingly. The dense cracks clearly appeared in front of the eyes, and Roswali was so scared that the feces and urine flowed across the corpse. Chapter 280, Alan's Bad Taste. The nobles of the world, who claim to be gods, are now being lifted into the air by Teach with one hand like a chicken. Tick, tick. The mixture of feces and urine fell on the ground continuously from between his legs, giving off a disgusting smell, but Teach was not annoyed at all, instead, his face was full of frantic excitement. Killing you fat pig, those guys from the world government, should be a headache, right? Teach said with a grim smile. As for the consequences of killing celestial dragons, he didn't even think about it, and he didn't have to. They Whitebeard Pirates, kill a celestial dragons, a stupid pig, still have concerns. The palms gradually tightened, and the cracks on the bubble cover spread wildly, just when Teach was ready to crush this stupid pig's head. Stop. A thick voice spread all over the 4 fields, and even when Teach stopped, 977, a hint of surprise appeared on his ferocious face. Uncle. Everyone in the Whitebeard Pirates stood up at the same time and looked in the same direction. Everyone is extremely respectful. This is awe from the heart. And the only person who can make these lawless monsters so awe-inspiring is the legendary man, the devil Alan. Quote. Quote. Alan. The leader of the Whitebeard Pirates, that demon. 39. God. He's here too. Now we're dead. All Marines, looking at the figure floating in the sky and coming from the sky, were all terrified to the extreme, and could no longer raise the slightest hope for life. They slumped to the ground, tears streaming down their faces, unable to even escape. God. Compared to that dirty stupid pig, this man who stepped out of the air now is like a real god. Boom. Although Teach stopped the moment Alan's voice came, the force still crushed the bubble cap on Roswali's head. With a bang, it exploded directly into pieces of debris. And Rosevali Saint also fell into his own feces and urine again, his face covered in blood, and looked at the group of monsters in front of him in fear. At this moment, he finally stopped shouting, because he found that these guys are all a bunch of lunatics. I don't care about his identity at all. What's even more frightening is that these guys are really not afraid of world government, and even Marine Admiral doesn't take it seriously. After escaping from death, Saint Roswald followed the voice, and the fear of being almost killed made him take Alan as the only life-saving straw, thinking that Alan was here to save him. Obviously, this idiot didn't know the man in front of him. I don't even know that this man is the most terrifying and crazy guy in the whole sea. Save me. Save me. I am the Celestial Dragon's Roswali. As long as you save me, I promise you will soar into the sky with endless wealth and power. Roswal Lishung struggled in the feces and urine, exhausted all his strength, and tried to crawl in the direction of the coming person. However, Wadebe and the others who knew Alan showed a playful smile and looked at Roswalia just like looking at an idiot. Uncle, why are you here? Teach's face was full of smiles. Even though his smile was extremely wretched and ugly, he could still see his flattery and awe. Naturally, I thought of something more fun. Alan looked down at the stink bug like Roswalis with interest and smiled playfully. As he spoke, Alan came to the top of Roswal's head. He didn't even bother to touch this stupid pig with his hands, but descended from the sky, slowly stepping on the face of Roswal, and stomping him into his feces and urine. What are you wanting to do to me? I'm a dragon. Roswal Lishung struggled weakly and roared incompetently, but the faces of the people present were only disdain and ridicule. Idiot. Alan also showed a look of disgust, and in the next second, a ray of energy gushed out from the soles of his feet, directly wrapping the whole body of Roswalis. The next second, something magical happened. I saw that in a burst of painful wailing, the limbs and body of Saint Roswali actually began to shrink a little bit, and the facial features were rapidly becoming distorted, and even the constant clamoring voice became more and more. The blurrier. Above the rippling blue sea, 3 huge warships are galloping. On the leading huge warship, the atmosphere was extremely depressing, but fortunately, none of the people who were able to stand on this warship were the strongest among the Marines. Not even one was under the lieutenant colonel. And those who can have such a terrifying lineup are naturally only under the command of the 4 top fighting forces of naval headquarters. In front of the huge deck of the warship, 3 burly men with terrifying aura and a woman with an equally suffocating aura were standing there, looking ahead, with the cloak of justice behind them, dancing wildly in the wind, and screeching loudly. The comers are the 4 top combat powers of naval headquarters, Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, Crane. Let the 4 top fighting forces of naval headquarters be dispatched together, and this situation only happened when the Rocks pirate was destroyed. This kind of lineup, let alone a small pirate group, even destroying several superpowers is easy. And worthy of Marines' mobilization, there is only the Whitebeard Pirates on the sea today. Only this pirate group, which is full of lunatics and is so powerful as a monster, will make Marine pay such attention to it, and the top combat power is almost dispatched. These lunatics. How dare you attack celestial dragons? Sengoku's face was extremely gloomy, looking into the distance with an extremely ugly expression. Among the few, only Garp had a look of indifference, still eating dorayaki leisurely, but said with some schadenfreude. He's been patient for a long time with these abominable bastard pirates. Crane's face is also ugly, but this kind of self-comforting 5.9 words obviously won't do anything. She still underestimated the stupidity and hopelessness of Roswalis. The ghost spider is on the boat, so he should try to avoid it in advance. 99. Celestial dragons. This time, I should have kicked the iron plate. It's not a bad thing to be taught a lesson, right? Ha 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 ha. Sengoku and Crane frowned slightly and glanced at Garp, but said nothing. As for Zephyr, he doesn't care about celestial dragons at all, he's just here for the Whitebeard Pirates. One punch bastard. We must arrest all these nasty guys this time. Zephyr slammed a fist on the railing, and the railing made of fine iron was instantly twisted and deformed. Chapter 281. Sengoku, shocked beyond measure. The afterglow of the setting sun, it was almost evening, and the warm golden sun shone on the sea, which was extremely poignant and beautiful. On the lonely and boundless sea, the sea breeze was blowing, and the seagulls were chirping, which seemed extremely peaceful, but the sea breeze was blowing, and a strong smell of blood permeated the place. The marine flag, a symbol of justice and peace, was already dyed red with blood at this time, and floated on the sea in a wreckage. Bastards. Those goddamn bastards. Sengoku looked at the scene in front of him, and immediately became angry. The blue veins on his forehead burst out in an instant, he gritted his teeth, and a terrifying aura burst out from his body instantly. Everyone present, except Garp and others, were all subconsciously, took a few steps back. Search for me. Find the trail of the Whitebeard Pirates. Zephyr's face was gloomy, and his anger was suppressed. His eyes were like lightning, looking for the traces of the Whitebeard pirates on the sea, but on this endless sea, except for the setting sun, there were corpses all over the ground. The Whitebeard pirates have long since disappeared. Medical soldiers, hurry up and rescue the wounded. His face was also extremely ugly, and he commanded in a deep voice. For some reason, many people here still survived, nearly 70% of them are still alive. Wait a minute, where did Roswally go? And, oh 6, where's the ghost spider kid? Sengoku's observation haki covered the audience, and his face instantly darkened. Those guys, didn't they capture celestial dragons and want to threaten the world government? He guessed in a deep voice. Threats. I don't think that guy would do something that only the weak would do. Garp said leisurely, still eating the dorayaki calmly. Hearing this, he also did not refute. Indeed, with the character of that lunatic, there is a high probability that he would not make threats like this. Soon, all the wounded were treated, including the remaining 2 vice admiral. Seeing everyone whose losses were not particularly serious, Sengoku was a little relieved. But compared to these people, Celestial Dragon's Rhodes Veil is the top priority. Hey, where did such an ugly pig come from? A young marine who was searching for Roswalis on the huge ship looked at the pig covered in excrement and urine in front of him, and immediately showed a disgusted expression. It should have run out of the kitchen. Don't worry, we can't find Roswally, we have no good fruit to eat. As another marine spoke, he directly kicked the pig in front of him and smashed it onto the deck beside him. At this time, Sengoku and others had come to the 2 vice admiral who survived. Say, what happened? Where is Roswally? Where is the ghost spider? Sengoku asked with a gloomy expression. Sengoku-sama, Ghost Spider Vice Admiral, was killed. 35. Vice Admiral replied falteringly with guilt and regret on his face. What? The Ghost Spider was killed? Sengoku suddenly shouted angrily, and the terrifying momentum instantly stirred up a gust of wind, which shook the surrounding warships frantically. Yes, we encountered all the main siege of the Whitebeard Pirates. The Ghost Spider Vice Admiral was sunk to the bottom of the sea by Marco. Vice Admiral lowered his head and said with a weeping look on his face. At this time, Garp's face also became extremely ugly, his eyes turned, and when he found the sunken warship, he dived and plunged into the depths of the sea. PFF'd. 35. A few minutes later, the calm sea was broken, and Garp rushed out of the sea, and what he was holding in his arms was the ghost spider that was no longer in human form. At this time, the ghost spider has long since been alive and dead, and almost all the bones on his body have been shattered, and the only remaining arms are twisted and deformed into a terrifying angle. The crane immediately stepped forward to check the ghost spider's injury. Fortunately, there is still a breath. Hurry. Bring the ghost spiders to naval headquarters immediately and contact Dr. Vegapunk. The only one who can save him, he is the only one. Crane sighed and ordered immediately. Soon, a team of medical vanguards rushed up, provided emergency medical assistance to the ghost spider, put down a fast boat, and returned to naval headquarters ahead of schedule. Damn, the spider was beaten like this. The anger in Sengoku and the others was completely provoked, and they turned to look at the vice admiral, and a terrible aura swept out. Where is Roswally? At this moment, even the vice admiral who was marine felt a suffocating pressure. Roswally. He was there. Marine vice admiral stretched out his finger with a complicated expression and pointed to a stupid pig that was crouching on the ground on the huge ship. Following the line of sight of marine vice admiral, Sengoku and the others frowned instantly, and their expressions became even more terrifying. What did you say? 99. Facing the pressure of Sengoku's breath, the marine vice admiral even felt that it became difficult to breathe, swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty, and said tremblingly, Lord Sengoku, it is true. I saw with my own eyes that Roswall was stepped on his head by the head of the Whitebeard Pirates, the devil, and then turned into a pig little by little. Silence. A dead silence filled the sea. The faces of Sengoku and the others have turned ashen, and they can even drip water. He did not believe that the marine vice admiral had a reason to lie in front of him, let alone that he had the courage to do so. Well, the fact is, Celestial Dragons, Rhodes Valis, was really turned into that guy, a pig. The atmosphere was terrifyingly suppressed, and an indescribable aura permeated from Sengoku and the others. 977. Sengoku looked at the white pig covered in excrement and urine with a complicated expression, and it took a long time for him to sigh heavily. Things are getting a little trickier now. Holy Land Mariajoy, inside the world government headquarters. In that magnificent palace, which symbolizes the highest power in the whole world, 5 old people are sitting together. They are the rulers of the world government, 5 elders. However, the expressions of each of the 5 people at this time were gloomy and terrifying. The beam of light did not hinder in the slightest, and with lightning speed, it pierced the head of the fat pig in an instant. Kong was not oppressed by the momentum, he said neither humble nor arrogant. Yes, Saint Roswall didn't listen to Marine's advice and insisted on provoking the main force of the Whitebeard Pirates. As a result, Alan used his abilities to turn him into a pig. The terrifying aura filled the air, and it was fortunate that the person who came in was empty. If it were anyone else, I would have fainted long ago, and it would be impossible to walk in here standing up. PFF'd. Looking at this scene, the expression of five elders became more and more terrifying, raised his hand, and a beam of light shot out instantly. I'll ask you again, this pig, is it really Rosewall? After all, he even threw the fat pig in his arms on the ground in disgust. In front of them, a fat pig, being held in his arms by Marines new Marshal Kong, walked in slowly. Chapter 282, the scandal spread all over the world. Blood splattered, and Roswalis, who turned into a fat pig, immediately turned into a headless pig corpse. He never thought that he was just being arrogant and domineering as usual. How could he be turned into a fat pig? Originally thought this was outrageous, but after all, it was considered an escape and was still alive, but who would have thought? Back at Marine headquarters, there is still no escape. Puff. Saint Rosewall was planted in a pool of blood, and he didn't even know how he died. Sora did not expect that the five elders would suddenly attack and kill Rosewall. After all, although this guy has become a pig, his identity is still Celestial Dragons. Block the news. This matter must not be spread out. As for Saint Rosewall, it is said that he unfortunately encountered the Whitebeard Pirates and was killed. The five elders didn't even want to look at the corpse on the ground, said in a gloomy voice. If you want to block the news, I'm afraid I can't do it. Sora said with an ugly expression, and immediately took out a newspaper from his pocket. On the top is a picture of Roswally being turned into a pig little by little in a pile of excrement and urine. Boom. A terrifying aura burst out from the body of the five elders in an instant. As the top leader of the world government, the strength of each of these five people is unfathomable. Under the rage at this time, the momentum alone made Sora feel a hint of suffocation and depression. The entire building seemed to be shaking violently at this moment, as if it were about to collapse at any time. Bastards. The Whitebeard Pirates, you'll pay for it. A voice with an incomparably cold and stern killing intent echoed slowly in the hall. It was obvious that Alan's actions this time completely angered the five elders. And what will meet them is bound to be a huge storm. At the same time, the news of celestial dragons transforming into pigs also blew across the sea like a hurricane. The first half of the Grand Line, La Garden, is generally not very ostentatious. It looks like an ordinary pirate ship floating aimlessly on the endless sea. Ha ha ha. This guy, Alan, is still so crazy. He dares to attack celestial dragons and turn him into a fat pig. What an interesting guy. Holding a newspaper in his hand, the man with the iconic mustache is laughing arrogantly. This person is none other than the famous pirate group in Paradise, the captain of the Roger Pirates, Gul D. Roger. It's really a crazy guy. Those guys who want to come to the world government are already crazy now. Sitting next to the man, Rayleigh also looked at the photos in the newspaper with interest and echoed, with a bright smile of schadenfreude on his face. The world government was devastated and furious. On the other hand, the Whitebeard Pirates, the initiators, were enjoying the banquet with laughter and laughter. Gia ha ha ha, big brother, you are really funny. You can turn celestial dragons into pigs, and even hype it up. The mask of celestial dragons has been completely torn. Quote. Whitebeard drank the wine bowl that was as tall as one person in his hand, and said with a cheerful laugh. Worororo. It's really more fun than killing that guy, but why did Big Brother keep so many Marines alive? How good it would be to kill them all. Kaido was feasting, and the bowl of wine was equally terrifying, asked suspiciously. What do you idiots know? What's the point of killing those weaklings? Leaving them alive can actually become an irrefutable proof that celestial dragons have turned into pigs. As long as they are alive, this matter will be gradually known by the world. Just newspapers is not enough. Before Alan could speak, Whitebeard spoke mercilessly. Bingo. It seems that you have also strengthened your brain a lot, Kaido. A wide smile appeared on Alan's face, looking at Kaido and teasing. Kaido's face sank immediately. Brother, are you saying that Whitebeard is better than me? The difference in strength between Kaido and Whitebeard is actually not very big. Both of them can be said to be monsters of immune to death. And Kaido has always felt resentful for being the third child, so he has to compare himself with Whitebeard in everything. As for why not with Alan's strong boss position? This guy is stupid, but not stupid at all, and he can still see how terrifying the gap between him and Alan is. Even if Alan doesn't shoot often, but the power given to them is enough to create a top-level powerhouse, you can see how terrifying and unfathomable Alan's own power is. Challenge Alan. It's all right you. Seeing Kaido's energy again, Alan's mouth twitched into a sly arc. I didn't say it, you said it yourself. Alan said something casually, then grabbed the wine bowl beside him and drank it on his own. It was Alan's attitude that completely inspired Kaido's competitive spirit. Edward Newgate, come and fight me. I don't believe you are better than me. Kaido didn't even call his second brother, he just called Whitebeard by name. Hearing that Kaido dared to call his name, Whitebeard's face instantly lost his smile, and he picked up the liquor on the ground unhurriedly, pouring it all into his mouth. Cut. There was a dissatisfied sound in his mouth, and the moment the wine bowl was placed on the deck, a terrifying momentum burst out of Whitebeard's body instantly. Kaido, who made you dare to call me by my first name? 35. A terrifying aura surged out along with Conqueror's haki. Fortunately, None of the people present were weak, only a few fainted, and the rest just instinctively stepped back a few dozen steps, looking at the two with a look of good play. With the appearance of the devil fruit, everyone on the Moby Dick immediately became excited. Alan shouted, and then he threw out a treasure like a hill, which was dazzling, and even had a devil fruit inside. If you meet a better devil fruit, you will stay and look for suitable opportunities to reward potential guys. And at this time, it is a chance for these little guys, and those who have a predestined relationship will get it. Anyway, no matter who gets it, it only directly enhances the combat power of their Whitebeard pirates. Little ones, the market is open, the market is open. I'll press your second uncle. 35. Everyone who can join their Whitebeard pirates is a carefully selected guy. The same is true for Alan, seeing that Nuo Chians finally had a good show, when even carrying wine and a huge roast leg of lamb, sitting on the high, shouting with interest until he fainted. For these partners, Alan has never been stingy. Chapter 283, Kaidov's Whitebeard. The eldest uncle suppressed the second uncle, and I also suppressed the second uncle. Me too, I believe in my father. Come on, father. I support my dad too. With Alan taking the lead, and the already boring crowd, the entire Moby Dick became lively. And Whitebeard and Kaido are also very powerful, standing up directly, facing each other from a distance, with fiery fighting intent on their faces. Gu la la la. Third brother, haven't you cut you for a long time, and you are floating again. Smelly Whitebeard, what are you talking about? Let's see how I beat you this time. From now on, I'll be the second brother. Kaido didn't even trace any ink, he directly took out a huge mace, and a terrifying aura filled the air. Of course, Whitebeard didn't give in at all. He reached out and picked up Kong Yunchi, and a terrifying aura that shook the sky and the earth suddenly spread out. These two guys are both admiral-level characters. Once they start their hands, the hockey collision of conquerors alone is absolutely beyond the ability of ordinary powerhouses to withstand. But fortunately, there are no weak people on this ship, and there are only a few fainted guys left, and no one pays any attention at this time. The rest of the people were all in high spirits, and even if the momentum made them feel suffocated, they still had a crazy look on their faces. Buy and leave. Buy and leave. The second uncle Baihu 980 sons lose 1-1, and the third uncle Kaido loses 5-1. Daddy, I support you, I will buy my daddy 10 million. Come on, husband. Buy my husband for 10 million. Come on. 35. Yamato raised his small fist and cheered for Kaido with his sister, and threw a big push of gold coins in one go. Seeing his daughter and wife being so powerful, Kaido finally showed a bright smile on his face. Ru, still my baby girl and Miko have a vision. Kaido laughed excitedly, and the laughter was thunderous, shaking all directions. This is the horror of this level of powerhouse, even if it is just an inadvertent action, it is enough to provoke the world. Gu la la la, I have never lost compared to my family, Kaido. Whitebeard saw Kaido get arrogant, and even laughed and teased. Sure enough, in the next second, Marco, Sachi, Anuarashi, Cat Viper, Kawamatsu and the others all threw gold coins and pressed them on Whitebeard. What made Kaido even more angry was that he almost twisted his beard when he saw that his daughter Yamato had bet 50 million on Whitebeard's handicap secretly. This AGFJ, bastard kid. He even used the pocket money I gave to press Whitebeard. Kaido felt jealous in his heart, his brows furrowed instantly, and even his aura became terrifying in an instant. But Kaido just glanced, didn't break it. Good guy, although he's a little stupid, he's not stupid. If he breaks it at this time, wouldn't he be embarrassed to death himself? It will definitely make this guy Whitebeard ridiculed. Waiting to go back, see how he teaches this little devil. All bets are over, Kaido and Whitebeard also take their positions, and the terrifying conquerors hockey hedges wildly in midair. Boom. The originally clear sky, at this time, has become cloudy at this time, the thunder is rolling, and the wind is whistling, the surrounding sea is suddenly choppy, and the waves are monstrous. Around the Sea Kings, all creatures sensed a great terror, and they all quickly fled the vicinity of the Moby Dick. Gu la la la. It's been a long time since I moved my muscles and bones, Kaido, don't let the second brother down. Years. Whitebeard cut the clump of clouds into the deck, and the shoulders and necks of the active person made a crackling sound like fried beans, and his eyes were like torches. Humph. Second brother, you can be careful. This time I won't be merciful. 35. Kaido waved the mace in his hand, and also inserted the mace in his hand on the deck, moving his wrist and fist back and forth. At this time, the slender figure is full of explosive power, the upper body is bare with terrifying muscles, revealing dragon-like texture, wearing leather pants, the whole person reveals a wild and savage aura. Whoosh, whoosh. The sound of heavy breathing came from Kaido's throat like a low thunder, and the dark clouds condensed in the sky, and at this time, light rain began to fall one by two. Crack. Sudden. A thunder pierced the gloomy sky, between lightning and thunder. When everyone looked at them again, they saw two sturdy figures who had disappeared into the thunder and lightning at an unknown time. A terrifying aura that terrified ordinary people to ultimate suddenly began to permeate from the air. At this moment, except for Marco and other Commodore-level strength, everyone else felt a great sense of oppression, and it even became difficult to breathe. Boom. 99. A huge muffled impact sound suddenly came out from the field. The two collided fiercely, their fists collided, like a meteor hitting the earth, a huge storm swept out in an instant, and the wind roared. The incomparably hard deck beneath the two of them shattered and collapsed in an instant, cracking inch by inch, spreading frantically like a spider web. Goo la la la, Kaido, it seems that you have become stronger recently. The corner of Whitebeard's mouth raised a playful arc, and said with a smile. Humph, stinky Whitebeard, watch how I beat you up. Kaido didn't talk nonsense at all. He punched him down, roared in a low voice, took a step forward with his right foot, and adjusted his posture abruptly. Then, his fist slammed into Whitebeard like raindrops. Oh la 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 la. Bang bang bang. 35. Terrible fist. Every blow is enough to shatter a mountain, even a Marine Vice Admiral. However, in the face of such a frenzied attack, Whitebeard was not at all timid at all. Instead, a gleam of light flashed in his eyes, and his expression became more and more excited. It's too early for you to commit a crime, Kaido. With the two at the center, the entire Moby Dick is shaking like crazy, as if it can't bear it at any time and completely disintegrate. Boom, 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 year. Whitebeard roared angrily, and his fist like a boulder also smashed towards Kaido frantically. The incomparably hard deck, even more like melted chocolate at this moment, began to burst and collapse at a rapid rate. The fists collided, the sky and the earth changed color, the terrifying hockey burst out involuntarily, and everything around was turned into powder in the terrifying fist style of the two. Boom. 35. He was forced to take a step back by Kaido's sudden attack, but it was only one step. This step was also to temporarily avoid the edge and adjust his posture. In between, Whitebeard's legs were like two pillars of the sky, slamming into the deck suddenly, the entire Moby Dick instantly shook violently, and the surrounding sea water instantly exploded with waves of 100 meters. Chapter 284. You two guys are so slow. Boom. The whole vast sea was surging, the black clouds were rolling, and the atmosphere between the sky and the earth seemed to freeze at this moment. Two tyrannical forces are colliding, and Conqueror's hockey is constantly colliding. The majestic pressure ripples out, almost filling the sea area for hundreds of miles around, and even the sky shrouded in dark clouds, at this time. With the two as the dividing line, they were torn apart. Horrible. A terrifying scene. Muffled thunder rolled, and the thick black cloud seemed to be cut off by someone with a sharp blade from the middle. And all this horror is just because of the battle between these two men on the Moby Dick. Edward Newgate, an absolute admiral-level powerhouse, coupled with the power of the dog spell bestowed by Alan, has kept his physical ability at its peak, becoming stronger and stronger. Edward Kaido, a top-level phantom beast with the ability to form a blue dragon, has a physical quality that is heaven-defying, and can even manipulate the power of wind, cloud, thunder, and fire to launch natural disaster-level attacks. And it also has the power of the dragon spell given by Alan, and its power is more than doubled. These two people, each one is enough to stir the whole sea, even Marine Admiral can't help it. Therefore, their confrontation is extremely terrifying and wonderful. Boom. The two were madly fighting against each other, and a powerful and unparalleled power erupted in the middle, forcing the two back together. This is just the easiest way to try, warm up. Neither of them used their real strength, but even Alan became a little curious when it came to physique alone. He also wanted to know whether Kaido's human beast form was stronger, or whether Whitebeard's shock fruit was stronger if he fought only by physical skills. The battle between these two guys is really unexpectedly interesting. Alan was also interested at this time, sitting on the throne of the high platform, reclining there, drinking wine and watching with interest. He was not at all worried that something would happen to these two guys, and he was even less worried that the treasure ship would be damaged. As long as both of them still have a breath, he can instantly heal them. Of course, he who has given Marco the corresponding ability, must be too lazy to take action himself, and handing it over to Marco can be regarded as letting him practice. He made a look at Marco, and Marco immediately understood. He squatted down slowly, and pressed his hands on the deck. A strange force, accompanied by white light, instantly poured out, and in the blink of an eye, the entire Moby Dick was destroyed. It's all shrouded in. Recover. Marco let out a low voice. The horse spell ability was activated, and the Moby Dick, which was almost broken by the lazy waste just because of the collision between the two, was restored to its original state in an instant, as if nothing had happened. Is this the new power bestowed by Big Brother? It's really powerful. Yeah, how enviable, you bastard Marco. 99. Damn it. Woohoo. Seeing that the new ability Alan bestowed on Marco was so pervert, everyone cursed with jealousy again. Gu la la la. What kind of power is this? It's really good to be able to instantly restore this level of damage. 35. Whitebeard also showed a bright smile and looked at his precious son. Marco can become stronger, and as a father, he is naturally extremely happy. Lucky bastard. As for Kaido, he glanced at him angrily. His sons and daughters didn't have this kind of honor, so they couldn't help but envy him. Okay. You two, go to the uninhabited island over there and let me see if you have grown up recently. 35. Although there is the ability of the horse charm, but the Moby Dick is still too small, and there are more than a dozen weak guys. Okay, listen to the elder brother, go to that uninhabited island, I really can't let go of my hands and feet on the boat. Whitebeard smiled, his eyes fell on a black spot on the sea level in the distance, the next second, his body slowly squatted down, and at the same moment, everyone felt an unprecedented sense of oppression, as if they were about to suffocate, and the surrounding air turned into a hurricane and was sucked into his lungs by Whitebeard. Just a simple action of accumulating power is already terrifying. Boom. The strong wind suddenly blew up, the deck burst again, and the huge Moby Dick was almost stepped into the sea in an instant, and some of the weaker guys on the deck were even more shocked. On the other hand, Whitebeard's tall figure had already jumped out, bursting out like a thunderbolt, sticking to the sea, and rushing straight to the isolated island floating on the sea in the distance. Ask for flowers. Immediately afterwards, before everyone could recover from the shock, another equally huge muffled sound suddenly came, the big ship shook frantically again, and Kaido rushed out. Looking at the Moby Dick that was just repaired and destroyed again, Marco's mouth twitched suddenly, but he had no choice but to activate his ability again to repair the ship, and then proceeded at full speed to the isolated island. But when Marco looked up at the heights, he didn't know when, Alan had already disappeared without a trace. Smelly Whitebeard, you are so slow. Kaido's foot on the flame cloud is obviously much more relaxed and comfortable than Whitebeard, even when he mocks Whitebeard. Whitebeard wasn't annoyed at all, just a sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, and then his right foot slammed into the void. Point 0. The void space seemed to be stepped out of a transparent wall in an instant, and it shook suddenly, and the sea swelled suddenly, and Whitebeard also used this anti-shock force to soar again and fly away. Don't think that you are the only one with the ability to fruit, third brother. Whitebeard took a bite of his third brother, which really made Kaido a little annoyed, but he was a little powerless to refute. Who let this guy stay with his big brother longer than himself? It's abominable. Humph. Bastard stinky beard. Kaido scolded, and then the speed broke out again, catching up. The speed of the two was extremely fast, and the battle started from this moment. However, what the two of them never thought was that when they just arrived at the island, a familiar voice suddenly came out. You two guys are so slow. The two of them were stunned for a moment, their eyes widened and they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw that Alan had arrived at the deserted island without knowing when, and even killed a wild boar and set up a fire. Big brother, how did you get here? Kaido was immediately stunned, his huge eyes like two big lanterns, looking at the leisurely figure in front of him in disbelief. You know, after he set off, he clearly saw Alan sitting there drinking leisurely. Even if Alan is faster than both of them, but not so fast, right? Corpse. Chapter 285. Kaido is furious and explodes. Looking at the surprised two people, Alan smiled faintly. He used the power of the rabbit charm, and of course the superspeed teleport was faster. Do you have muscles in your head? Big brother can teleport, don't you know? 35. Whitebeard squinted at Kaido and said speechlessly. Kaido suddenly came back to his senses, the elder brother's daughter Gion seems to have been given this kind of power, and the speed is extremely fast. Okay, this is a deserted island of 5 people, let's continue, let me see how the two of you are now. No need to talk nonsense with these two fools, Alan said casually while roasting the wild boar in his hands. By the way, if any one of you wins, I can focus on your son for the next gift of power. Alan's mouth curled into a sly smirk and said casually. However, upon hearing Alan's words, 980, Whitebeard and Kaido's eyes widened, and their expressions became obviously more serious than before. These two guys have always been in competition, and Alan has not stopped them. A healthy competition will only make their Whitebeard pirates stronger. To put it bluntly, pirates have to be wild. If everyone is a good baby, what the hell is a pirate? Go home and farm. Worororo. Big brother has spoken, I won't let you go this time, stinky Whitebeard. 99. Kaido was immediately excited, and he also wanted to give his daughter Yamato an ability, which was undoubtedly an excellent opportunity. Go easy third brother, the next time the power is given to my precious sons, don't even think about it. 99. Whitebeard waved the clump of clouds in his hand like a big tree, and said with a big laugh. Both of them were moving their bodies while talking casually. However, the seemingly random movements of the two people had already collided with two terrifying auras like the ocean. The deserted island that was originally calm and peaceful, is now covered with dark clouds and strong winds, flying sand and rocks for a while, as if the end of the world is coming. The beasts who were sleeping soundly also suddenly woke up at this moment, and they were shrouded in great fear, lying on the ground shivering, and they didn't even have the courage to escape. Boom. Sudden. Kaido stomped the ground suddenly, and the terrifying power instantly shook the entire island. Giant trees within a radius of several hundred meters were directly uprooted and flew into the air. The ground under his feet burst into a huge deep pit in an instant, and the ground was instantly overturned and turned into dust. Immediately afterwards, Kaido jumped up suddenly, and the speed reached ultimate. Countless giant trees were thrown or kicked out by Kaido like spears, wrapped in a piercing sound, and shot towards Whitebeard overwhelmingly. However, this is not the end. With this level of attack, it is impossible to hurt Whitebeard. Even if you stand still with Whitebeard and let these giant trees hit you, you will probably only leave some dust and be knocked back a few steps. Bad wind. A roar came from his mouth. Like a dragon roar, Kaido suddenly took a big breath of anger, and when his lungs swelled to the limit, he suddenly opened his mouth and spit. Ha, 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 ha. In an instant, countless sharp, but without a trace, the wind blades that were almost hidden between the windy trees burst out, intermingled between the giant trees, and shot at Whitebeard together. With one kick, the whole deserted island shook, and thousands of trees flew together. Each blow of the terrifying wind blade is enough to slash a marine vice admiral in half in an instant. An attack of this magnitude is enough to destroy even a marine's branch outpost in an instant. Worororo. Come on, second brother, I haven't exercised my muscles for a long time, warm up first. Kaido's mouth twitched sharply, his eyes were like electricity, staring at Whitebeard in the distance and said with a wicked smile. Humph. That's it. Whitebeard sneered and kicked with his right foot. Kong Yunchi, who had inserted himself into the ground, immediately clenched his hand and slashed out with a knife. Hey. 35. The light of the knife was stern, and the terrifying light of the knife was more than 10 meters wide, and it burst out from the cloud cut in an instant. Bang bang bang. In an instant, any giant tree that came into contact with this sword light turned into powder in an instant. That's right, it was directly turned into powder, not cut off. Because this knife not only contains Ultimate's sword intent, but is also imbued with the ability of shock fruit. The power of the terrifying fruit compressed by Ultimate cannot be stopped at all. Ashes. Including those wind blades hidden in it, all of them will be shattered instantly if they are touched by the blade light. The attack was overwhelming like a rainstorm, and Whitebeard saw a gap with his knife, and Whitebeard just stood there, not even moving, letting the remaining wind blades pass by the giant tree, smashing hard. Falling on the deserted island behind Zero. Boom boom. The huge roar suddenly resounded through the sky, and it was endless. The entire deserted island was shaking wildly, with smoke and dust everywhere, as if it had been hit by countless meteorites. Shish. And just in this terrifying explosion, a subtle sound of breaking the air suddenly came, and Whitebeard's eyes instantly glanced to the left behind him. I saw a flash of lightning. Kaido's eyes widened in anger, holding the 8 fasts, and he was already killing him. CCC. Terrible lightning strikes, lingering around Kaido's huge body, his long black hair fluttering in the wind, and the dragon pattern on his body looks extremely terrifying at this moment, as if he was alive. At this moment, Kaido is making loud crackling noises all over his body, his muscles and bones are like dragons, he is simply an ancient fierce beast angry, and his ferocity is unparalleled. Thunder 8 trigrams. The sound of the roar was mind-blowing, and the thunder and lightning with the thickness of an arm began to flash frantically, wrapping around the 8 fastings like a thunder snake. Kaido's stout arm like a giant tree suddenly started to exert force, his muscles swelled, his veins burst out, and his terrifying strength began to surge wildly, and he slammed down Whitebeard's head with a 5.9 blow without leaving his hand. This hit. A full display of Kaido's unparalleled terrifying power. Terrible. Just the power that escapes carelessly will pierce the hard ground. The sky and the earth changed color, the waves were surging, and the whole space was shaking. Even the admiral of headquarters would never dare to resist easily. And because of its ultimate speed, it is extremely difficult to avoid, even if it has a primary observation Haki that can foresee the future, without a matching speed, it is impossible to avoid it at all. At this moment, Kaido was clearly getting serious. Although the two of them were ruthless in their mouths and tried their best to belittle each other, they knew each other's strength better than anyone else. If you don't go all out like this, it's impossible to win or lose. Chapter 286. The earth collapses, and all life is destroyed. The bright moon is in the sky, and the stars are dotted. Above the unchanging lonely sea, the deserted island was originally quiet and peaceful. However, just a few minutes ago, that all changed. The wind howled, the dark clouds covered the bright moon, and the terrifying storm accompanied by vibrations shook the entire island as if it were about to burst at any time. And all of this is because of the arrival of 3 men. 2 terrifying auras, like the awakening of the ancient dragons, stood on both ends of the deserted island, and the terrifying momentum collided wildly. This small island seemed to be torn apart in an instant. Seeing the thunder dragon-like terrorist attack coming from behind him, Whitebeard's eyes instantly became cold and stern. Good come. Whitebeard roared angrily, with no intention of evading at all, his waist turned violently, and then his hands clasped in the middle of the cloud, and a huge force also burst out along his arms. 35. A muffled sound as if the space trembled came out from the cloud cutting edge, and 06 saw a strange white light gushing out instantly, covering the entire cloud cutting blade. Boom. Bajiji and Kong Yunchi collided fiercely, and suddenly, a terrifying force centered on the two of them burst out frantically, and the hard ground was crushed into powder almost instantly. Everything around was blown into the air by the terrifying force at this moment, and then completely turned into fly ash under the escaping energy. Crack. 39. Boom. 99. The whole island was shaking wildly, the sky covered with dark clouds thundered and thundered, all of which were like the end of the world. Do not. Except for Whitebeard Kaido and Alan, this island at this time is a real hell for ordinary people. The two were bounced off by a huge force, and Kaido felt a numbness while holding Hachisuiji's arm tightly. Shock Fruit's ability is really a bit pervert, so if you face it head on, you won't be able to take advantage of it. Even with his pervert's physical fitness and defense, he felt a slight threat. On the other hand, Whitebeard's body was surrounded by purple electricity, and a tingling feeling spread all over his body at this moment. Obviously, Kaido's ability to control wind, thunder and fire clouds was also caused by him to a certain extent. But, it was just a little bit of trouble. I saw a wicked smile on the corner of Whitebeard's mouth. Kong Yunchi suddenly slammed in his hand, and his aura suddenly skyrocketed. The dog talisman ability was activated, and any side effects caused by Kaido's blow just now were eliminated in an instant. Even the lost physical strength was instantly restored at this moment, directly returning to its peak state. Looking at this scene, Kaido's expression suddenly became extremely ugly. What the hell is going on with this? This guy has the power of a spell, and it is impossible for him to hurt this guy at all. Although he also has the power of the dragon charm given by Alan, the dragon charm only enhances his attack power. He can't really make the strongest blow and burn this guy to ashes, right? Don't say he doesn't want to do such a thing. Even if he does, it's no wonder that Alan next to him doesn't directly kill him. But what Kaido doesn't know is that even if he can burn Whitebeard to ashes, the power of the dog spell can still make him immortal. That is the power of immortality. An immortal body that can keep the bearer forever young. No matter how badly the body is damaged, it can live forever and live forever. Even if it is burnt to ashes, it can still be alive. Of course, for such a pervert, let alone Kaido, it is estimated that even the holder Whitebeard would not have thought of this step. After all, this is a bit too unreasonable, and no one dares to think so. Wait a minute, let's take back the power of the spell for the two of you. Just as Kaido frowned and thought about how to defeat Whitebeard, Alan, who was already eating barbecue, suddenly said. Immediately afterwards, Alan waved his hand at will, and two white lights condensed directly from Kaido and Whitebeard's bodies, and then flew directly back to Alan's hands and disappeared. Seeing this scene, Whitebeard and Kaido were immediately stunned. They knew that Alan had the ability to give strength to others, but they never imagined that he could take it back at any time. This made Kaido more jealous of Alan in his heart. To be precise, it could not be regarded as jealous. After all, he didn't have any unreasonable thoughts, and he also admired and loyal to Alan from the bottom of his heart. It's just getting more and more that Alan is terrifying. Go away together. Whitebeard wasn't displeased at the loss of the spell's power, instead he laughed and teased Kaido. In fact, even if Alan didn't take it back, he didn't intend to use the power of the dog spell again. This ability is too pervert, and if you use it all the time, it will be too foul. This sparring will also become no fun. But since it is better to withdraw the power of the spell at the same time, this is also more fair, the two can fight happily with their true abilities. Humph. Stinky Whitebeard, now that you don't have the power of the spell, I see how arrogant you are. Kaido didn't talk nonsense at all. His eyes were condensed, his legs were straight 980 and then he suddenly exerted force. The ground under his feet cracked inch by inch, and his figure also cut through the space like a thunder in an instant, rushing towards Whitebeard. Without the power of the spell, the old man still abuses you. Whitebeard smiled confidently, and rushed out as well. The two collided directly in midair, followed by a fierce confrontation. The speed is extremely fast. I can't see the real action at all, and I can only see countless afterimages flickering in the air. And every time it hits, there will be extremely terrifying sonic booms and ripples, and the radiation spreads. All of a sudden, the roar was incessant, resounding through the sky. This small island was more like being bombed wildly by hundreds of marine warships at the same time. In the blink of an eye, it was completely destroyed. The ground burst, the boulders turned into powder, the towering giant trees could only be turned into fly ash under the wind of the two men's fists, and huge deep pits with pits appeared one after another. In less than half a minute of fighting, the landscape of the entire desert island has been changed by two people like beasts. Destroyed. The earth collapses and life is destroyed. The strange thing is that on the other side of the island, there is an ancient tree that stands very abruptly, without the slightest damage. And that's just because Alan is leaning leisurely beside this old tree, eating barbecue and drinking wine. 18 LF. Chapter 287. Dad and Sanbo are so strong they don't look like humans. You may like. Blemish removing method, suggested by dermatologists. Blemish removing method, suggested by dermatologists. YUKINOUE. Above the sea, the Moby Dick was advancing at full speed, and at this time, even the crew members who were in charge of heading and controlling the power were all stunned in place, as if froze, looking at the place not far away, stunned. Trance. There, it seems like another world. It's like another hell. A hell that exists in reality. Black clouds shrouded, the thick thunder bombarded down in the constant roar, and the terrifying impact sound, accompanied by the power that made the whole sea tremble, spread in waves. Under this power, the calm sea seemed to boil, setting off huge waves, which shook the Moby Dick like a giant ship, as if it were about to overturn at any time. My god, what the hell happened? Is this really just sparring? My mom. Is this really something a human can do? 35. So strong. Dad and Sanbo are strong and don't look like humans. Quick, take control of the boat, you little brats are blessed to be able to see the serious battle between the father and the third uncle. 9. Marco stared at the battle not far away without blinking. He really wanted to fly over to watch it, but he couldn't leave the group of guys on the boat, he could only keep urging. And as he got closer and closer, just the terrifying oppression caused by the collision of the two conquerors' hockey made him feel a lot of pressure. Many people even fell one by one at this time. It's so scary. This deserted island is 100 miles in diameter, but any creatures that can escape will probably have escaped long ago. It will be a rare opportunity for you to park the boat here and have the ability to get close and watch, and the rest of you stand back. After Marco said in a deep voice, he spread his wings on his back, and he couldn't wait for a long time, so he rushed into the air and flew towards the deserted island. Immediately afterwards, Guion, Jinbei, Quinn, Enel, Carmenio, Little Oats, Teach and others all jumped up and approached the deserted island. This level of fierce battle, even for them, is an extremely rare opportunity. The rest of the people retreated unwillingly in remorse. There was no way, the momentum was so terrifying, they couldn't get close at all. And even if they are close, the speed of the two of them fighting is too fast, they can't see clearly at all. Quote. Quote. As Marco approached, he soon discovered a strange scene on the desert island. I saw that the entire deserted island was shrouded in dark clouds, but it was divided from the middle, with thunder roaring on one side and hockey bursting on the other. What is even more bizarre is that it has long been turned into a dead island. On the barren desert island, there is a towering ancient tree standing quietly there. It's Uncle, Marco exclaimed, and then he mustered all his strength, resisted the pressure, and came to Alan's side. The moment after he stepped into the vicinity of Alan, the terrible pressure on his body disappeared in an instant. As if this is a paradise in that hell. Seeing that Alan ignored him, still watching the battle in the distance, Marco didn't say anything, standing quietly beside Alan, admiring the battle at close range. Bajiji waved. Kaido's huge figure suddenly turned into a shadow of thunder, ramming towards Whitebeard arrogantly. The children are here, second brother, don't hold back. As the shadows collided, a low roar with crazy fighting intent came out of his throat excitedly. Kaido burst out like an angry ancient dragon, and the 8 fastings that lingered with thunder and lightning were now wrapped around the tyrannical armament hockey. Wherever they passed along the way, the ground could not bear this force directly. Like tofu, it was split into a long ravine. Whitebeard looked at the guy who rushed forward with a calm expression. Compared to his defensive power, he was slightly inferior to Kaido, but compared to his destructive power, even Kaido with the blessing of the dragon charm was not necessarily his opponent. So in the face of this level of attack, Whitebeard didn't plan to dodge at all. What he does best is attacking. Just as Kaido quickly approached Whitebeard within 10 meters, Whitebeard finally moved, and his right foot suddenly took a step forward, and the whole deserted island was shocked. Immediately afterwards, all the muscles in the whole body swelled wildly at this moment, the blue veins burst out, and he clenched Kong Yunchi tightly. Knife splits the sky, Whitebeard shouted angrily, Ohm. With a bang, the shock fruit ability was activated again, and wherever he passed, the space seemed to be torn apart in an instant. However, what Whitebeard didn't expect was that in the next second, a sneer with pride came out of Kaido's mouth. Just as Kong Yunchi's blow was about to hit Kaido, the lightning flashed. Bella. Along with this electric light, Kaido's figure disappeared in front of Whitebeard's eyes in an instant. Second brother, you really don't think I'm stupid. 35. Kaido's mouth curled into a smug smile, his fierce face looked extremely cunning at this time, and in an instant, he escaped Whitebeard's terrifying blow and appeared directly behind Whitebeard. 3 worlds, Yinaluo. Kaido jumped into the air, the pitch-black hockey above the 8 fasts exuded a terrifying sense of oppression, and the thunder in the sky was madly aroused at this moment, all wrapped around the 8 fasts. Give me. .99. Go down. Kaido roared. The unparalleled power erupted wildly at this moment, and the terrifying thunder poured out in a frenzy after a long time of accumulation, and smashed it towards the Whitebeard below. This sly guy, Baihu Nuo Qian's, frowned instantly, but he didn't expect that this idiot would choose to avoid his own attack and faint. It's not like this guy's style, is it? This kid has never been soft-spoken, and now he actually took the initiative to avoid it, which is enough to show that this guy really wants to win. Thinking of this, the corners of Whitebeard's mouth also slowly twitched, and he didn't panic much. At this moment, his powerful body control was shown to ultimate. With a single blow, the ground was instantly slashed into a bottomless terrifying ravine, and the entire desert island and the sea area with a radius of 100 miles were shaking wildly. Heaven and earth are fading at this moment. On the other hand, Whitebeard didn't even look at it, his whole body surging frantically, he twisted his body abruptly, and forcibly raised his left arm to resist. 35. The shock fruit ability was finally activated in an instant, resisting Kaido's terrifying blow before. Chapter 289. Whitebeard is angry, shock fruit versus Kaido. The fiery fireball fell like a meteor, smashing on the ground, and a sea of fire suddenly ignited. And this attack that was enough to kill hundreds of people was just a feint. Catching the cover of heat breath, Kaido dashed in front of Whitebeard in an instant, and the Zeon strike broke out brazenly, hitting Whitebeard in front of him. Wrinkling his brows slightly, Whitebeard had just cut off his exhausted arm, but suddenly he burst out with an incredible force again, forcing him up. Boom! Haki surged, Shock Fruit's ability erupted again, and the void space suddenly seemed to have turned into a wall of void, smashed on the 8 fasts, and directly changed its direction. Boom! 95. The terrifying air wave, accompanied by thunder as thick as the mouth of a cylinder, shot straight into the sky, instantly blasting the dark clouds covering the earth into a huge deep hole. Looking from the ground, it seemed as if the sky had been directly blasted out of a big hole and abyss. When Kaido felt a tingling in his arm, his right hand almost couldn't hold the 8 fasts. And Whitebeard was equally uncomfortable. The residual energy just swept up his face. The terrifying thunder and strong wind made him feel a sting in his face, and even his beard was burned. A pinch of focus. Kaido and Whitebeard's huge figures flipped backwards in midair at the same time, backing away. Boom! Whitebeard slammed to the ground heavily, and his legs instantly stopped more than 10 meters from the ground. However, when he looked up again, a huge and terrifying figure was already entrenched above his head, covering the sky and the sun. Roar! Kaido has directly transformed into a beast form. Its body is nearly 100 meters long, as thick as an ancient tree, flying through the clouds and fog, and covered with extremely hard scales. Standing tall in the sky. The thunder was rolling from the back, the dark clouds covered the top, the huge dragon head looked down at Whitebeard, the eyes of the dragon were full of light, and that terrifying sense of oppression and might. Even if Marine Vice Admiral stood here, he would be instantly frightened and paralyzed. At this time, even Whitebeard, who was 5 meters tall, seemed extremely small in front of Kaido. Thunderstorm. The huge dragon roared, shaking the sky, and the thunder and lightning in the midair with the dragon's roar suddenly shot down towards Whitebeard, densely packed and overwhelming, as if countless missiles fell from the sky in an instant, saturated. Bombing. Boom, boom, boom. The huge explosion sounded incessantly, and Whitebeard began to save his energy at this time, and did not resist hard. Although these attacks were not enough to really hurt him, they couldn't let them hit him, and he simply began to dodge. To everyone's surprise, despite the huge size of Whitebeard's body, his speed is not slow at all. With the cooperation of the extremely strong observation Haki, he was forced to shuttle back and forth in the thunderstorm, all dodging the past. However, Kaido is obviously not that simple. Just when the thunderstorm dragged Whitebeard, Kaido's dragon mouth had already opened, and the incomparably hot energy had been gathering in his mouth for a long time. That energy seemed to contain a huge volcano in his mouth, and then compressed wildly. Dragon flame explosion. When the power accumulated to the peak, Kaido's whole body slowly curled up, and then he opened his mouth and spit. Boom! The terrifying dragon's hot breath suddenly spewed out of his mouth, shattering the space like a pillar of fire, and slammed towards Whitebeard, who had just avoided several thunderbolts. Looking at the continuous and well-timed attacks, Whitebeard's expression also became extremely serious unconsciously. His brows were lightly frowned, his eyes seemed to be brewing with electric light, and he quickly scanned the surroundings, looking for a possible route to avoid. However, the thunder and lightning roared all around, directly blocking all his escape routes. Go off, your IQ is much higher than your usual IQ. Whitebeard saw that there was no way to avoid it, and even shouted with a smile. Since you can't hide, then shatter it. As the thoughts in his mind fell, armament Haki burst out on the cloud cut in Whitebeard's hand. Accompanied by a humming sound as if the space trembled, a huge milky white energy also appeared in front of everyone in an instant. The shock fruit ability was activated, Kong Yunchi suddenly waved, and the next second, the milky white energy was directly condensed into a ball and threw it out. Everyone's faces were full of surprise, even Kaido was stunned for a moment. He has never seen Whitebeard use his fruit ability like this. It seems that this guy usually doesn't train himself secretly. 0. ****. The milky white ball of light burst out and slammed into the pillar of flame that was oncoming. Boom. The explosion that shook people's eardrums resounded, and I saw that the pillar of flame that seemed to be indestructible was forcibly resisted in the air, and it was difficult to store it in the slightest. And where, the space seems to be distorted, in the crazy tremor, and in the tremors again and again, the energy of the pillar of fire is being rapidly consumed. Boom. Suddenly, a ferocious explosion sounded above the void, and the blazing fire, as if the sun suddenly appeared in front of everyone's eyes, devoured the entire desert island in an instant. Although Alan had isolated the aftermath of the battle between the two, the dazzling light still made Marco and the others unbearable, and they all instinctively closed their eyes. Point 0. The violent hurricane is centered on the explosion, and the fiery energy spreads out like ripples. The sea suddenly swelled, setting off huge waves, which rushed in all directions like a tsunami. Then, what is that? Like a sun. My god, could it be that Kaido-sama's hot breath is so terrifying? This level of aggression, is it really something a human can do? Strange. Monster. Quick. Turn the rudder and back. The tsunami is coming. 35. There was already a panic on the Moby Dick in the distance. Everyone looked at the sun that suddenly rose on the deserted island in the distance, and almost didn't get their eyes out. Looking at the tsunami surging towards the Moby Dick, Jinbei drove the boat and quickly backed away. Even though they are still nearly 1,000 meters away from the real battle center, they can still clearly feel the horror of this battle. It's better to step back a little. If you accidentally hit by the attack of two monsters, then with their small body, even if they don't die, they will be seriously injured. The blazing light gradually dissipated, and everyone hurriedly opened their eyes and looked towards the center of the battlefield. And Kaido is still soaring above the sky. The dazzling firelight seems to be unable to cause any hindrance to him. Corpse. Chapter 290. Kaido's strongest form. Man and Beast. The blazing fire illuminated the heaven and the earth, the hot energy swept out with the storm, and the whole deserted island suddenly became a purgatory on earth. Kaido's gigantic dragon body was entrenched in the sky, looking down at it all, staring at the explosion. He knew best how powerful this blow was. With the blessing of the dragon talisman, this blow would be enough to instantly turn this deserted island into magma and disappear into this world. However, even if there is no dragon spell at this time, the power of this blow is still terrifying, and even Admiral would never dare to resist it head-on. Above the sky, the fiery light of fire gradually dissipated, and the heaven and earth returned to darkness again, only the thunder was occasionally pierced. Sudden, a black shadow suddenly rushed out from the aftermath of the explosion, heaven-defying rose, and shot straight towards Kaido. The strong oppressive wind, and even the piercing eardrums hurt. The figure burst out at an extremely fast speed. Kaido transformed into a beast-shaped 983 state, although the strength and defense have been greatly increased, but the speed and evasion ability have dropped a lot. At this time, he could only watch the terrifying figure that was a little black, but also full of anger, and appeared above his head so suddenly. Buzz. Without giving Kaido the slightest chance to react, Whitebeard slashed directly at Kaido's head. The space was torn apart instantly, and milky white energy exploded directly on Kaido's forehead. Boom. The space vibrated, as if unable to withstand this force, and shattered directly like a porcelain. And then, everyone saw a very scary scene. Kaido's huge dragon head was directly smashed to the ground by this blow, and the speed was so fast that it even produced a sonic boom. Boom. A huge muffled sound spread, and the entire deserted island shook again, followed by an overwhelmed start that finally fell apart. The sea began to pour in, the boulders began to collapse, and the monstrous waves surged into the sky. These two guys, won't they control their power a little bit? It's really troublesome. While eating the barbecue, Alan complained a little unhappily, and then everyone was surprised to see that a strange ability surged out of Alan's body in an instant, and in the blink of an eye, the entire island was destroyed, covered in congeal. As soon as he said that, the island that was collapsing constantly, as if the end of the world had come, suddenly made a strange sound. The gushing magma stopped instantly, and the cracked mountain-like boulder also seemed to stop in the middle of the sky as if time and space had stopped. In the next second, everyone saw an extremely miraculous scene. Flying sand rolls back, boulder rolls back, magma pours back. In just a few breaths, this small island that had been completely collapsed was completely restored to its original state. Of course, Alan did not restore the vegetation and creatures on the deserted island, because it was not necessary, and to this extent, even with the divine power of the horse charm, it could not be done for the time being. Because those things have completely turned into nothingness in the battle between the two, and there is no way to recover. And so far, the battle between these two guys is still not over. When the island recovered, Whitebeard Ling Ran stood there amidst the smoke and dust, like a sculpture, holding a cloud of clouds, with a strong anger on his face. Everyone looked closely, only to find the reason why Whitebeard was angry. It turned out that Whitebeard's beard was directly destroyed in the dragon flame explosion just now. At this time, it became black and curved, extremely funny and embarrassing. This, Daddy's beard. Marco and the others were stunned. Whoever had ever seen this scene was immediately put in place, and it was hard to imagine the terrifying anger that Dad would burst out. However, in the next second, an uncontrollable laughter suddenly came out. PFF'd. Ha ha ha. How can this guy be so embarrassed? I'm laughing to death. When everyone heard the sound, the people who dared to laugh at Whitebeard like this, in this world, I am afraid that there is no other person except Alan. Marco and the others twitched at the corners of their mouths, looking at Alan's laughing appearance, with a bitter smile on their faces. This time Kaido is going to be miserable. The proud beard was made to look like this, and it was fortunate that Kaido was his third brother, otherwise Whitebeard would have to kill this guy. But the death penalty can be escaped, and the death penalty is inevitable. If you don't teach this bastard a good lesson today, he will not be called Whitebeard in the future. Thinking so in my heart, wherever my eyes went, the familiar figure slowly walked out. Worororo. Brother, you look like this without a beard, you're really young. With a bit of teasing and ridicule, the voice came out from the smoke and dust. When Kaido appeared again, that appearance once again made everyone stunned in place. This appearance is a human beast form. Sanbo's strongest state. God, for this sake, is this finally serious? Monster. Why do I feel that neither the father nor the uncle Sanbo, in the Battle of the Island of God, seems to have used all their strength? 99. Everyone was surprised, and the corners of their mouths twitched. If one of these three people tried their best in the battle on the Island of Gods, I am afraid that the outcome would have some changes. Co-authored. Captain Rox was played alive. A horrifying thought appeared in everyone's mind, but they were quickly attracted by Kaido's form. I saw that although Kaido was still human at this time, his whole body and even his face were covered with blue dragon scales, there were even 2 huge dragon horns on his forehead, and a thick dragon tail was borne on the tail. And what is even more bizarre is that his legs have turned into the shape of deer legs, and the strong muscles are exposed, just looking at it makes people's scalp tingle. However, both feet are incomparably sharp dragon claws, no matter where they stand, a mark is easily stepped on the hard rocky ground. And this? Kaido grinned teasingly, and his white teeth seemed extremely penetrating. Second brother, I think it's better that you don't have a beard. You look young. It's more suitable for my third brother to do this. Boy, you dare to touch my beard, believe it or not, I will let you go back today. And at this moment, 2 strong conquerors' haki burst out from the 2 of them almost at the same time. 5.9 In this state, both attack power, defense power, and speed are enhanced several times, which is a perfect fighting stance. As if whatever Kaido did, it didn't matter to him. Just standing there is like an unshakable mountain, making people unable to resist the idea of it all. It is Kaido's strongest form, the human beast form. Whitebeard glared angrily, staring at Kaido, not at all surprised by Kaido's change, let alone fear. Chapter 291. Terrifying Speed. Jundali Longshungjin. The void burst. Kaido and Whitebeard stood on the desert island, facing each other from a distance. Even though the 2 of them didn't move at all at this time, as the 2 became serious, the terrifying conqueror's haki became even more terrifying, colliding wildly in midair. The entire island, including the sky, was divided, the black space cracks crazily collapsed, and the terrifying aura, even with Alan's resistance, still made everyone in Marco feel extremely terrified. These 2 guys. Are really strong enough to pervert. The strength of the Whitebeard Pirates is really terrifying. In the distance, under the sea not far from the deserted island, a small reconnaissance submarine floated in the sea like a small boat in the turbulent waves. On the side of the submarine, Marine's totem is printed. Yeah, these guys are like monsters. 35. Among the submarines, the 3 Marines who were in charge of reconnaissance were all pale, and their faces were full of horror and shock. At this time, the silence in the submarine was terrifying, and everyone didn't even dare to breathe. Even though they were separated by a distance of nearly 1,000 meters, they could still clearly feel how terrifying the 2 forces were. Lord Zephyr has been notified. They must be on their way. There are Lord Zephyr, Lord Sengoku and Garp Vice Admiral. It should be, no problem. 35. With a reluctantly bitter smile on his face, a military officer wiped the cold sweat on his head and said, "You must know that these 2 people are not the strongest beings in the Whitebeard Pirates, but even so, the combat power they displayed seems to have surpassed the imagination of ordinary people. Absolutely admiral level, and a pirate group has 2 admiral level monsters, and a monster that has killed several admiral monsters. How can such a pirate group be eliminated? The strength of Kaido and Whitebeard almost destroyed the will of several Marines. There is no way. The scene seen through the observation environment is really terrifying. The dragon is in the sky, the thunder is shaking, and the whole world seems to be trembling in the battle between the 2. On the deserted island, the battle was still going on, and the 2 of them were finally serious. As Kaido transformed into the strongest human beast form, Whitebeard's eyes and expressions immediately became sharper. With a slight wave of Kong Yunchi in his hand, a strong wind emerged out of thin air, instantly blowing away the dust that covered the sky, and just before the dust was lifted, Whitebeard's pupils shrank instantly, almost without the slightest hesitation. As soon as your feet hit the ground, you immediately retreat. Boom, boom, boom. Just as Whitebeard burst back, a huge fireball broke through the dust, shot out from it, and went straight to Whitebeard. Shish. 35. While Whitebeard stepped back, Kong Yunchi kept waving in his hand, and the sharp knife light swept across, even if the fireballs that were enough to easily knock down a mountain were cut in half. Bam. Boom. Bam. The fireball was cut open and exploded directly, and the fiery fire wave spewed out, filling the sky and covering the earth. Hey. Immediately after that, almost at the moment when Whitebeard had just resisted these fireballs and the flames enveloped everything, a black shadow suddenly burst out from the sea of fire. This time, Kaido's speed increased several times almost instantly. The terrifying speed made it flicker like an electric light, and the illusory afterimage appeared, and then it rushed in front of Whitebeard in an instant, and Bajai was smashed down with unparalleled terrifying power in his hand. Boom. And only at this moment, a huge explosion sound came from the place where Kaido was standing just now. This shows how terrifying the speed of this guy is now. It has already directly surpassed the speed of sound. Seeing this, Whitebeard's pupils shrank slightly, and the Kong Yunchi in his hand was also impenetrable. Several sharp knife lights flew towards Kaido in the blink of an eye, trying to limit Kaido's speed. However, what Whitebeard and the others did not expect was that, in the face of Whitebeard's attack, Kaido at this time seemed to ignore it as if he didn't see it, and rammed his body in the most brutal way. Clang, clang. The light of the knife slashed at Kaido's body, and the sparks shot in all directions, making a harsh metal rubbing sound like grinding teeth. This guy's current defense is getting more and more pervert. Looking at this scene, even Whitebeard couldn't help being a little shocked. Just relying on the flesh to resist his Kong Yunchi, this kind of crazy thing, I am afraid only this guy can do it. You know, this seems like a random blow, but the existence of a Marine Vice Admiral that can easily kill a Marine Vice Admiral is definitely not to be underestimated. But it was such a ferocious attack that was directly crushed by this guy, and they were all smashed to pieces. Incomparably savage, it really doesn't look like a human being, but an ancient wild beast. This guy is so much faster. Whitebeard's brows finally furrowed, and his expression became extremely solemn. Kaido, who has transformed into a human beast form, has surpassed him in both speed and defense. However, At the moment when Whitebeard was shocked, the figure whose momentum reached its peak, suddenly flickered in front of him, leaving an afterimage, and disappeared directly in front of Whitebeard. A chill suddenly emerged from Whitebeard's heart, and he turned his head suddenly. Kaido's grinning, demon-like figure appeared behind him like a ghost. Gundali Longsheng Army. 99. Boom. 35. This blow is so powerful. The air exploded in an instant, and the void even appeared black cracks under this blow. Wherever Ba Jai Jia passed, the harsh sound of sonic boom exploded, and the power alone was enough to make Ba Jai Jia go. A certain degree of bending has occurred. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared directly from everyone's sight. A low roar resounded in his heart, and the power contained in the 8 fasting precepts soared again, and finally reached its peak, and under everyone's horrified eyes, it smashed firmly on Whitebeard's back. A terrifying force erupted, and Whitebeard was blasted out directly, shooting out a few hundred meters like a meteor, and then smashed into the ground heavily. The hard rock ground was plowed away like tofu for hundreds of meters, and then again rushed into the sea and set off 2 monstrous waves. The black shadow raised his head, revealing his fierce and beast-like face. At this moment, he clenched the 8 fasting precepts with both hands, and the 3 energies of wind, fire and thunder, accompanied by the fully open armament haki, all rushed out. The ground exploded in an instant, and the terrifying Ba Jai Ji, with the help of the half-circling power of his body, mixed with a terrifying gust of wind, smashed into the back of the beard. Boom. Chapter 292. Shock Fruit Erupts. Tsunami. The sea surface burst, and a figure shot past like a meteorite, directly dividing the sea surface. Kaido's attack is really terrifying, the speed is as fast as ultimate, the defense is amazing, and the power is even more terrifying. Silence. A dead silence filled the whole world. In front of Kaido, there is a ravine of several hundred meters, nearly 1,000 meters, which makes everyone present feel the horror of ultimate. What terrifying power must this be to create such an outrageous scene? With this level of attack, there is no doubt that if it hits any of them, I'm afraid they won't be dead or alive for long. It's too strong. Horrible. Countless people widened their eyes and stared at Whitebeard, who was blasted away for nearly 1,000 meters and disappeared without a trace. Could it be? Whitebeard really lost? After recovering from the shock, this terrifying thought appeared in everyone's mind. Gudong. Marco swallowed hard, looking at the direction that Whitebeard was blasted away with an ugly expression, his face full of disbelief and worry. Dad. Little Oz's expression also became extremely ugly at this time, his huge ridge-like back was already wet with cold sweat at some point. His eyes trembled as he looked at the nearly 1,000-meter-long ravine, his huge mouth felt dry, and it took a long time for him to murmur. On the deserted island, all eyes were on Kaido, who was still waving a stick. Although their expressions were different, they were all filled with indescribable shock and awe. Uncle San is so strong. It's amazing. It's like a monster. Yeah, it's too ferocious to actually use the body to resist the second uncle's saber chi. I don't know what happened to the second uncle. This blow is too terrifying, it should be not lightly injured. It is estimated that the hanging was blasted nearly 1,000 meters, should not have the strength of a battle. No, impossible. Dad can't just lose like this. 35. That's right. Dad can't just lose like this. 99. There were also differences among the people, and they began to speculate one after another, all eyes staring at the distance and gradually returning to the calm sea. What was that thing that flew by just now? It seems like a figure. 0.35. What? It won't be on the Moby Dick, because the distance was too far, everyone couldn't see what was happening on the deserted island at all, and could only see a little bit of the situation. At this time, the movement like a meteor, even if it attracted everyone's attention, it also affected the minds of countless people. This knockdown is not bad, like a decent. Alan looked at Kaido who was slowly standing upright, a look of admiration on his face, but then a playful arc appeared on Alan's face. But it's a pity. 95. Just as Alan's voice fell, a muffled sound suddenly came from the calm sea in the distance. The sea surface that had just subsided burst instantly, and a water column shot straight into the sky. Seaquake. A familiar roar resounded between the heavens and the earth, and then before everyone could react to what was going on, the sea in the distance was suddenly surging with huge waves. The huge wave is like a waterfall hanging upside down on the Milky Way, straight into the sky, and it rises hundreds of meters high. It's Daddy. I knew that Daddy couldn't be defeated so easily. Daddy hasn't lost yet. 9. God. What kind of move is this? Is it intended to submerge the entire desert island? Everyone exclaimed, watching the terrifying tsunami like the Milky Way pouring out, and immediately panicked. But looking at Alan, who was still drinking leisurely and contentedly beside him, everyone felt relieved. I saw Alan drink up the wine in the bowl leisurely, and then press his palm lightly on the ground, with a sudden force. Crack, kick. With Alan as the center, the ground in the surrounding area of 100 meters cracked instantly, and then it would float directly into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it rushed to the altitude hundreds of meters away. Everyone watched this strange scene, and their hearts were suddenly filled with horror and shock. It is really hard to imagine how strong this man leaning beside him is. In every gesture, they are all heaven-defying, incredible abilities. No wonder Alan can become the eldest brother of the three demons. Presumably in this world, apart from Alan, there are only dead rocks who are qualified to be the eldest brother of the two monsters on the desert island. At the same time, not only this deserted island, but even the surrounding sea area with a radius of 100 miles ushered in a disaster. The terrifying tsunami was turbulent, and the ship could not navigate at all, and it would be overturned and swallowed up in an instant. Backquote. Fast. Turn the rudder fast. Accelerate. Get out of here. On the Moby Dick, Cat Viper shouted, looking extremely nervous, looking at the monstrous tsunami in the distance, his eyes were full of fear. Jinbei's face is also full of horror. As a Murloc, no one knows better than him, to set off a tsunami of this magnitude, what kind of incredible terrifying power is needed. Not daring to stop at all, everyone worked together and started to escape. But the next second, just when Jinbei was trying his best to control the Moby Dick, he suddenly felt the rudder lighten, as if it lost the resistance of the sea in an instant. Immediately afterwards, everyone was surprised to find that they seemed to be gradually moving away from the sea. What's going on? We seem to be floating. 35. No, it's not us, it's the whole Moby Dick that's going up. Inu Arashi's pupils shrank suddenly, looking at the Moby Dick, which had already floated in midair, and exclaimed. It's not authentic. Why didn't the uncle tell us no money is good, the Moby Dick can still fly? Sachi's brain was wide open, looking at this scene, the corners of his mouth twitched and he said something that left everyone speechless. At this time, they finally had the opportunity to watch this top battle closely. Have you ever seen a sailing ship that can fly? Originally, I wanted to watch this competition and learn it, but I didn't expect that I almost didn't learn my life in it, it was really terrifying. The only person who can do this incredible thing is Alan. Everyone complained in their hearts, ignoring this guy, and all rolled their eyes. God, what a flying fox. Everyone escaped and floated in midair, finally breathing a sigh of relief. Isn't this guy scared to death? And soon, when the Moby Dick flew to an altitude of several hundred meters, everyone also saw the giant tree and Alan and others also floating in the air in the distance, and even understood. Chapter 293, Furious Zephyr. A huge tsunami rose into the sky and destroying the earth. In the distant sea area, the marine submarine in charge of reconnaissance was also affected by the sudden tsunami. At the same time, on the sea not far away, 3 huge warships were speeding at an extremely fast speed. Among the leading warships, the 3 top combat powers in marine stared at the video screen in front of them with gloomy expressions. The atmosphere was terrifyingly depressing, and the incomparably heavy pressure trembled in everyone's heart. Those vice admirals were already pale and covered in cold sweat. Boom. Sudden. In the silent hall, there was a sudden loud noise. Seeing that Zephyr smashed the table beside him with one punch, he suddenly stood up, his brows furrowed, his face extremely ugly, and he stared at the screen that had suddenly disappeared, and violent killing intent burst out instantly. Asshole. Speed me up. Fast. Zephyr roared angrily, and the army officer, who was still in a daze, was suddenly awakened. Yes. After saying that, he rushed out in a hurry, constantly urging the warship's speed to exceed the limit and speeding towards the distance. And their 983 target is the deserted island that has been devastated. After fluttering in the air and failing to save celestial dragons, Zephyr and others did not leave except for Crane being recalled, but received an order from the headquarters to make the Whitebeard Pirates pay the price. The former marine submarine was also the scout that Marine released to look for the Whitebeard Pirates. Through the video phone bug, Zephyr and others also watched the shocking battle on the desert island from a distance. No one thought that Whitebeard and Kaido, who were only the second and third leaders of the Whitebeard Pirates, would have such terrifying combat power. This level has completely reached the Admiral level, and even if they take action in person, I am afraid it will be difficult to obtain much benefit. What's more, the most terrifying thing of the Whitebeard Pirates is not these 2 monsters, but Alan. That terrifying demon. Originally thought that with Zephyr, Sengoku and Garp sitting in town, they would be able to completely sweep the entire sea area. Tense up. Some people even resigned in their hearts. This AGFJ, this monster. Are we really going to go after them? 39. Even if there were Lord Zephyr, Lord Sengoku, and Garp Vice Admiral, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to do anything about them, right? Quote. There were murmurs in the hearts of everyone, all of them were pale, and they only felt that their throats were dry, and their fear was constantly rising in their hearts. Notify the whole ship, prepare for battle. Sengoku also noticed the changes in the expressions of the crowd and the strange atmosphere. His brows were slightly furrowed, and a powerful aura suddenly poured out from his body, instantly awakening the people who were in fear. Yes. Everyone suddenly returned to their senses, and the fear in their hearts was quickly suppressed under the influence of Sengoku's aura. Soon, everyone left here, everyone on the 3 warships was very busy, and the atmosphere of depression and tension continued to heat up. Garp, are you sure? After everyone left, Sengoku looked at Garp with a gloomy expression and asked in a deep voice. The strength of these 2 people is beyond our expectations, but it's still within an acceptable range, just. A sharp look flashed in Garp's eyes, and his face was full of solemnity. Just what? Sengoku kept his eyes on Garp and asked. It's just. Then these 2 guys, we should be more worried about the guy sitting in the corner. Point 99. Garp ate the dorayaki in his hand one by one, and said with a solemn expression. Sengoku naturally knew who Garp was talking about, and immediately frowned. The air became heavier and the atmosphere became more oppressive. After a long time, Sengoku sighed heavily. If it doesn't work, I'll have to ask the marshal to act together. The voice fell, and the huge hall fell into dead silence again. On the other side, on the deserted island, the terrifying battle has not yet come to an end. Dark clouds covered the sun, and the terrifying thunderbolts poured down continuously from the dark clouds, creating dazzling cracks in the dark world. At this time, a huge wave with a height of several hundred meters seemed to be about to disperse the dark clouds and shoot straight into the sky. With an indescribable terrifying power, it smashed down towards the deserted island. Although the deserted island is not big, it is still an island after all, but this tsunami is actually bigger and bigger than this deserted island, as if an abyss mouth would swallow the entire deserted island in one bite. On the deserted island, Kaido, who has transformed into a human beast form, looked at the tsunami that covered the sky and the sun in the distance, with black hair dancing wildly in the wind, but the fierce face did not change in the slightest, but the fierce light in his eyes was more intense. Very. With a slight flick of Bajijia in his hand, the air suddenly let out a roar, which suddenly echoed on the deserted island. The purple thunder that was all over his body continued to breathe, and every breath and breath seemed to have flames burning. The power of wind, cloud, thunder and fire all gathered together, and the terrifying power was condensed on the 8 fasts, pointing to Whitebeard in the distance. In an instant, a terrifying gust of wind burst forth. Out. Condescendingly, looking at Kaido, whose aura was soaring again, Whitebeard was not surprised. The corners of his mouth curled up, and he murmured in a low voice, "Third brother, let me see where your limits are." 5. Worororo. Are you serious at last? Twisting his neck, there was a crackling sound, 2 scarlet rays of light appeared in his eyes, Kaido exhaled heavily, and the space in front of him was suddenly swallowed by the fine thunder. Just exhaling a mouthful of turbid air can possess such terrifying power, which is enough to show that both of them are planning to use their true skills now. The fiery flames burst out from above the huge body. Accompanied by the thunder, it rapidly rose again in the gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, Kaido was the center, setting off a huge flame tornado. The fiery temperature suddenly spread, and the ground around Kaido melted at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into hot magma flowing. An attack of this level is simply devastating, it shouldn't be weaker than Sanbo's tsunami, right? And the huge flame tornado was still expanding, as if it was going to pierce a hole in the whole day. My god, Kaido-sama is finally serious. Now watching Kaido also show his power and support Kaido's boys, he finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Wow, this is. Whitebeard's tsunami was so shocking, it stunned Quinn and others as soon as he appeared.